Yeah, here. Yes. Rosewood, FOW. All the signs.
All of mine, yes.
I never used that. I think I've used it years. Shows that I come in my time.
Yep. Can't do it upside down.
Mega. Oh, mega.
Okay, we are on Facebook.
Oh, sorry.
Is it showing up?
All right, welcome everyone. This is a Village Trustees, Village of Shore Hills Board of Trustees. Meeting on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. The time is 7:02. Let's call the meeting to order. Julie, would you like to do the oath of office for recently elected village trustees from the April 2nd, 2024 election?
I would like to do that. Thank you. Carol, Dietmar, and Bob, do you guys want to stand in the middle so we can get you on camera?
And I'm gonna put on my dress blues. It's like a lineup.
So we're going to cheat a little bit and we'll do a group reading if you guys are okay with that.
Yep.
Okay, raise your right hand and please read your oath.
I, Dietmar Basooner, having been duly elected to the office of village trustee in and for the village of Shore Hills, Dane County, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of village trustee to the best of my ability.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Dietmar?
You got all your fine copies?
I do. I can send you a copy, yes.
Congratulations, Dietmar, Carol, and welcome, Bob. Nice. So glad you could join. All right. Item B, appointment of President Pro Tem. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but my philosophy with the appointments this time was really to shake it up a little bit and rotate positions wherever I could. And that includes the President Pro Tem. So I'd like to nominate Carol Barford for the President Pro Tem for the next year. Mark?
I'll second that motion.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor? That's a good discussion. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions?
Carol, I think you're great.
Do I vote?
No, I think you're great, but I think John should have spoke to me and maybe like just let me know that ahead of time, and so for that reason, I'm saying, not that I've been against you.
We did speak this afternoon, but point taken. Julie, can you do the roll call?
I can. President Imes,
Present.
Barford,
Present.
Basooner,
Present.
Falk,
Here.
Lutterer,
Here.
Lutfi,
Here,
and Stanky.
Present.
Okay, then I need a approval of the agenda, a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dietmar. Appreciate that. Discussion on that one? All those in favor of the agenda, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion carries. Procedures, orientation. for my cheat sheet. I just want to note that the meeting is being live streamed on the Village's Facebook page. And any comments provided through Facebook may not be considered contemporaneously by those at the meeting. Comments should be sent to the village administrator, Sharon Evelyn, and she will disseminate them to the trustees. And then item 6.
Final order, did we cover line item 4?
You know, I don't think we did. Sharon, thank you, Dietmar. Was the meeting properly noticed?
Yes.
Thanks, Dietmar. And I've read the procedures orientation. Item 1.6, public comments. This is an opportunity for community members to speak to the board. No discussion or action may take place at this time, but trustees may ask clarifying questions only. Speakers may be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak? Marilyn.
Marilyn Townsend, 1121 Wellesley Road. Yeah. Two things. I had one thing, but then I must say I was a little taken aback by the appointment of President Pro Tem. It was generally the person with the most seniority. It isn't clear why it was necessary to pass over the woman with the most seniority and to pick someone else. I was frankly surprised, and if there is going to be like shake something up, it appeared that the person who was passed over is the one who speaks out most frequently. And to a resident looking at that, I was surprised with no explanation to hear that. Moving right along, I notice in the agenda, it isn't exactly clear what it involves, but it says discussion, possible action regarding retention and new hire bonuses for staff. I certainly looked over the memorandum from our administrator and noticed there was a suggestion that there be bonuses for the police department, but also a suggestion that while we're doing it, we'll give bonuses to everybody. Well, first of all, I was a little surprised by that this suddenly seemed to come up. I would say that we do have a procedure here in the village of Shorewood Hills on how we determine whether folks are, what the wage increases are going to be. And generally that's done in connection with the yearly budget, because we have so many groups in the village asking for increases. It's unfair to allocate money out of the budget in the middle of the budget unless a good reason has been shown. Now, I think it is a good reason. If one of our police officers has an offer to be hired at another department, and if we match that offer and have some type of agreement, that's a special reason in mid-budget to award that officer an increase on the condition that that officer would stay. I do not support other staff before the budget process getting increases. There's absolutely no reason for that. But let's talk about what this board has done in the past when that issue has arisen. Most recently in 2021, our police officers are represented by a labor union. And in connection with their labor contracts, they negotiate wages, hours, and conditions of employment. The last labor contract I was provided in response to a request said that it continues in effect from year to year unless in July, each party says an intent to renegotiate it. It is now April. If there's an intent to, across the board, give all police officers increased wages, that should be part of the collective bargaining negotiations. Now, what happened is not too long ago, we had an officer, and there's no need to mention the officer's name, but the officer said the officer had an offer. So it came to the village board. the Shorewood Hills Professional Police Association presented a proposal that this one officer would get a retention bonus for not going to the other police force of $4,000 payable soon thereafter. If that officer left before a certain amount of time, and that was before 3 years, that officer had to pay back the $4,000. That officer left during a different time and pay back $3,000, a different time, $2,000. I think frankly, as someone who really values our 24-hour police force, and also as a longtime resident, understand the financial challenges the village of 2,500 faces, I think it's important to try and do whatever we can to keep experienced officers. But I think if we have an officer who's about to leave, we should talk to the union and talk about this proposal, and I'll leave a couple of copies of it. So if you kind of forgot about it, it happened 2 years ago or 20 months ago. So that is my proposal. And then I did read, and I was very troubled about this in the memo from the administrator, repeating a lot of statements that our police force is not valued. I have lived in this village for over 30 years. I value our police force. I was just on the phone with our former police chief, Jerry Jansen, who was very dear to all of us. He'd sit through our meetings. He educated me during the many years I served as trustees. I valued him. I valued the subsequent office of Denny Pine, and valued all of the officers. Jamie and I forget your assistant police chief, I see her as. I value her, and I was on the board when she was hired. I have not seen another resident who speaks ill of our police force, but I take umbrage if there's an officer who says we don't appreciate them because we don't automatically increase the police force, or we don't give increases without thoughtfully dealing with their union and talking about that. Because we are a small community of 2,500 people, and we need to consider things, but also remember, as my son wouldn't get an increase on his job, and then he got another offer. Then he got a big increase. So I think, well, good for you. But I think it is important to go to the union. And the other thing is our personnel committee made a recommendation that the board should appoint an ad hoc committee to study the wages, hours, and benefits of our police force. And I would add, in conjunction with the labor union, we ought not to get into unilateral bargaining. As a lawyer who's represented unions and employees for years. So,
We could wrap it up, Marilyn.
Yes,
It's
and
very
no,
helpful.
you're
It's
right.
really good. I want to extend enough time, but we're.
You are absolutely President. You're right, President Ryan. So thank you all. I know these are tough, but these are just some thoughts I wanted to share. I'm on board and my experience as a labor union lawyer.
Marilyn, thanks so much. Johnny,
John, I agree with Marilyn. I think I don't have a problem with Carol, but I don't like hiding the weeds. As I sat here, I just got a bad taste in my mouth, feeling that you hadn't even talked to Sean. And it just doesn't seem like the way we do things here in the village. But that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the pay bumps we're talking about. We have a tendency in the village to sometimes rush to judgment. We want to do things quickly. We don't want to wait for the process to work out. Whenever we do that, we end up getting ourselves in trouble. Whether it's a cement bridge or whether it's something else, we rush in and then we have to correct it later. I think the personnel committee has to take their time, do what the job that they've been given. I don't think we should rush to judgment. I think for one thing, absolutely undercuts collective bargaining. I've been involved in collective bargaining, and you wait till the appropriate time and you deal with the pieces and the parts as they come up. By jumping ahead of the game, then you're just gonna have collective bargaining afterwards again. So save that for when you're sitting at the table. And at that time is the perfect time to work with it. By that time, you have personnel who has looked into it. You have some feedback from the community. And I think in the end, you're in a much better position than jumping at something that maybe could take a little more time. And that's probably true for all of us. It's true for the board, but I think it's always good advice to step back a little and let the process that we put in place work out. Thank you.
I want to get the individual agreement we negotiated with, we say 3 copies of it back in September 2022.
All right, further public comment this evening? Jay, no one in mind?
Someone just raised their hand.
Oh, Michael. You're muted, Michael. Go ahead.
He's there. He's not muted.
Michael, did you have public comment? Oh, he said, I'll be right back. Okay, well, wait a second. And no one else online wishes to speak?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Couple chats too.
I'm trying to.
Well, are you there? Okay, all right. All right, thanks so much. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. We're going to continue. All right, item 7, board matters, payment of bills. Sharon, I know you speak to this. Mark, did you want to comment on this at all, or?
I'll go ahead and make the motion, John, to approve the bills in the amount of $173,464.64.
Dietmar?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor of payment of the bills, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion carries. Item 7B, consent agenda. We've got some minutes on here. Do I hear a motion? Dietmar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Your second, Bob, thank you. Further discussion? The discussion's consent. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Motion carries. Item 7C, new businesses, resolutions and motions. Item C1. Discussion, possible action regarding conflict of interest waiver from Stafford Rosenbaum regarding 2725 Marshall Court Apartment, Sycamore Investors LLC. Sharon, I know you speak to this on page 1 of your memo. I reviewed the memo. We've got a recommended motion. Anyone want to make a motion on this item? Oh, Derek is here. Welcome, Derek.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
You want to sing?
That audio did not come through.
Is it working? Try again.
I'm
Derek,
unmuted. Can you hear me?
is the volume down on that, Sharon?
Can you hear me okay, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Does that mean nobody could hear us all this time?
We couldn't hear that. Because he could hear us because he was responding.
That's true.
Yeah, but I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Derek.
Good.
Yeah. Is Michael still online, Julie?
He is still here.
After we finish this item, I might give him the opportunity to share a few words.
That's a good idea.
Okay. All right, Sharon, was there anything more you wanted to say about this, or should we ask Derek, or?
I mean, I would say if there's any questions from the board on this, that Derek can certainly answer those. I do think it's very minimal in terms of what we're talking about, but certainly, Derek can answer questions on it.
Dietmar,
Why don't I just get this motion on the table? And discuss it and such. I'll make a motion to authorize the village administrator to sign the conflict of interest waiver from Stafford and Rosenbaum related to the development agreement issues with Sycamore Investors LLC.
there a second to that motion? Thank you, Carol. All right, discussion. Mark,
Yeah, I just have a question in your memo, Sharon. Have a sentence that reads, as part of this arrangement, the attorney that represents Sycamore would not represent them on anything to do with Marshall Court. Since that in part, and I just wanted to clarify, maybe with Derek, as to whether what was intended there was the wording the attorney, so that the matter would stay with the firm, or are we really talking about under this arrangement, the firm would refer Sycamore to another law firm? In other words, are we just shifting lawyers within Stafford, where one will represent the trust, the other trust, the village, and one will represent Sycamore, or we're talking about one would be outside counsel?
So, and Derek can speak to more specifics, but essentially, the attorney that Stafford Rosenbaum attorney that represents Sycamore
Right.
would continue to represent Sycamore on all other issues, but would not represent Sycamore on anything to do with the Marshall Court Apartments. And then, so Marshall Court Apartments, then they would, Derek, please correct me if I'm wrong, but Sycamore would need to secure outside counsel outside of Stafford Rosenbaum related to the Marshall Court Apartments. Correct, Derek?
That's absolutely correct, right? So Jim Statz, who's a partner at our firm, Stafford Rosenbaum, will provide general corporate advice to Sycamore investors, right? Capital formation, how, actual structuring of the organization itself, but he won't represent them with anything to do with the Marshall Court Apartments. And so if they need legal advice, then they can go to outside counsel, which they have already done in the past. So that's not concerning from our part. The issue, and as we lay out both in our letter as well as the information that Sharon provided here, the issue was that initially when we took a look at this tax increment grant agreement, there was a different entity, this Marshall Court LLC, that was originally the developer in that project. The tax increment grant agreement that Taiga that we had allowed that developer to unilaterally assign its interest under certain conditions, and it did so, but unfortunately it did so to an entity that we also represent. So that's somewhere along the line that occurred, and once we identified the potential conflict is when we raised it here with the village. And so there's been no work on that to date that's really complicated our relationship with the village or with the developer, but we just want to make sure that we get ahead of it as we round out the final bit of work that we need to do for the Marshall Court Apartments.
Dietmar,
Thank you, John. Derek, but I guess you mentioned one thing. I understand that in most instances, there's an LLC that lies over that development. How does that come into play with Sycamore Investors? Is that another entity that there's a potential conflict of interest and representation, or is it truly passed on the original LLC into now the Sycamore Investors? You follow?
I'm not sure if I follow your question, Dietmar. Can you say it again?
Yeah, so I guess I'm just based on experience. Typically, with any sort of real estate development, there's, call it whatever, 2895 LLC or 2895 Marshall Court LLC. That's the original LLC that gets established for development. Are you saying that that LLC has gone away and is now rolled into Sycamore Investors, or does that LLC still exist? And is there a conflict of interest representing that in a future state? Because the motion is just for the Sycamore Investors, right? It's to Sycamore Investors.
Understood. Thank you. My understanding is that that original LLC, that 2725 Marshall Court LLC, no longer exists. They assigned their interest to certain other individuals who later formed Sycamore Investors, and Sycamore Investors LLC happens to be a client of our firm. So that's where the conflict comes up now. So it's kind of a reshuffling of the partners who, or I'm sorry, the members of that LLC and those people who contributed capital to that project. And so we came on board forward as they were forming that LLC, and then only later realized now that there was a conflict with the village.
Understood. Crystal clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? Oh, Sheldon, I'm sorry.
Attorney Punches, what is the alternative if the board decides not to sign the waiver?
In that case, we would both have to find outside counsel to move forward. Neither one of us, neither I would represent the village, and nor would my colleague Jim represent Sycamore Investors with respect to this project at Marshall Court.
Further questions or discussion? Got a motion? Ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries. Item C2, discussion. Oh, sorry. Michael, are you with us? Well, Derek, great to see you. I don't think your services are no longer needed. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you and good night.
I didn't hear my last one. So. Julie, do you see?
Michael's there and his sound is on.
You want to provide him that, well, he can hear us, so.
Julie, would you want to check the chat?
I'm looking at the chat. I'm not seeing anything. Michael, can you hear us okay?
Here we go.
It says I've stopped his video. Oh. Okay, Michael, I just put request to restart. You should be able to speak as well. I see that you're not muted. And then you just have to click your start video because I didn't. Yeah. All I can do is ask to start. I can't start it for him.
Oh, please continue. All right, Michael, sorry about that. Thank you. All right, item 7C. 2, discussion possible action regarding authorizing the village clerk to sign the amicus brief on behalf of the village related to ballot drop boxes. Julie, did you want to comment on this?
Well,
So bold.
I don't have it right in front of me at the moment.
Like my copy?
Well, I could just speak in general.
Okay.
The brief was sent to me through WMCA just to make clerks aware. That's the Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Association. They don't have any stance on this, but after reading through it, and I had shown it to John as well, it's something that I think is important. In my opinion, the more ways that people can safely drop their ballots. And honestly, in my opinion, drop boxes are just as safe or safer than mailboxes because we have less people touching them. And I talked with John and I thought it would be a good thing to sign on. The Dane County clerk has signed on, Madison clerk, several other clerks throughout the state. They are presenting this tomorrow to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So we are just sliding this in under the wire by presenting it to you this evening if it's something that you think that the village would support.
Sure.
And I will also add too, the reason why this came in when it did, we just got it like Friday, I think, or Thursday night.
Thursday
So,
afternoon.
yeah, so this did come into us really late. And I can also say, not saying one way or the other, which way I fall on this issue, but I can tell you that based on the comments that we've gotten from residents who come in, wanting to, why can't you just put, and we do still get those, why can't you just put this in the Dropbox? Why is the Dropbox closed? This definitely seems like something that this community, at least, I'm not necessarily all of them, but I think a good strong majority of the people in this community, this is something they would like to support too. So just didn't want to point that out.
And does anyone remember what we spent on to update that box? Did we update the box with that in mind? I shouldn't ask questions I don't know answers to.
It was before my time, so I don't know.
Or me, I'll get
It was a significant dollar amount, but it was around the COVID time,
before my time.
and it was a significant cost,
There is very specific security specifications.
right?
That are required by the Wisconsin Election Commission that our box does meet.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that as of right now, we're not able to use that for for absentee ballot purposes. Keep on.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion on this one, an emphatic motion, actually. We should emphatically say yes to this. I'll make a motion to authorize the village clerk to sign the amicus brief on behalf of the village related to ballot drop boxes.
Thank you, Dietmar. Rob, you second that? Okay, further discussion on the motion? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion passes unanimously. Item C3. Discussion possible action regarding retention and new hire bonuses for staff. Sharon, you speak to this in your memo. I know Shabnam, the personnel committee, have a special meeting on this. How do we want to tee this off? Shabnam, do you want to tee it off or? Sharon, do you want to just provide us
I'm
some?
happy to answer questions that trustees have. The trustees have questions.
Sharon, why don't you?
Okay.
Provide more overview.
Sure, so I tried to do a quick summary on this, so this issue came up, that was brought to me initially by Lieutenant Weitzel, about a month ago, maybe, I think it was, regarding the pay. And she had been collecting some data on comparable or on other communities in the area. And my initial response to her was, admittedly, I understand there's a pay issue. This is a much bigger issue and not something that we can fix quickly. It definitely warrants a discussion. And she continued to collect the data, which is one of the things that I did need, and I appreciate the work she did to that. And then as she was finishing up on collecting the comparables, we also, during that process, we had a resignation from one of our officers. We recently received another resignation from another officer, and we are currently aware that another one of the officers is in the process for another agency and is on the tail end of it, and we could potentially receive a resignation notice from that individual relatively soon as well. So once I realized that this was not just a pay issue anymore, this was can we even function as a department issue? It became apparent that this needed to be a immediate conversation to at least make the personnel committee and the board aware of what was going on. Because what I didn't want to happen is to sit silently on this because I was simply only here for another week and a half. And have this kind of blow up after I leave, and people wonder why I didn't bring this up. The thought process behind this is not to be a fix. This is in no way, shape, or form going to fix the pay issues. Because I agree and have, as the chief and lieutenant can attest, I have stressed that this is an issue that goes beyond simply raising pay, because there's so many constraints to that. And we have to do that within the budget cycle. So what the idea for this was to be, quite frankly, a Band-Aid, a stopgap measure to keep the department from bleeding out. Because, and it's not being sensational, I'm not sensationalizing this, but quite frankly and quite bluntly, that is the position that the village is in right now. We are very close to not being able to, and quite frankly, even right now, once that second officer leaves, we will not be able to provide 24 coverage without unfairly burdening our existing staff. So the issue becomes is how do we try to keep the staff that we have? Which, by the way, going through the hiring process and equipping and providing uniforms to a new officer is incredibly expensive. And I don't know if Chief was able to pull the numbers together in time. Again, we were moving very quickly on this. But I would argue it's probably more than $5,000 incentive. And the idea was to try to stop the bleed and give us some breathing room until we could get to the point where we could actually go through the process to have a real conversation about wages and figuring out if we're going to adjust wages, how we're going to fund that. As the trustees, most of the trustees, if not all, know, you know, we are restricted into how we can increase revenue. So, which is another issue that I actually had to go over with the chief and lieutenant to kind of explain to them why, you know, even if we can look at this and say we are way under comparable community or other, I don't use the term comparable, but other communities in the area. It's not as easy as saying, yes, we want to increase wages, because we have to figure out where that funding is going to come from. So my initial, as I mentioned in the memo, my initial approach was the $3,000 retention incentive and new hiring incentive. And I came to that number because I was not initially recommending incentives for additional staff. And I was trying to balance the need to try to be sufficient enough to stop the bleed while not overly harming morale among the other employees. And the personnel committee, when they discussed it, their primary concern, from my perception, was ensuring that the officers stayed. And so they were really keen on the $5,000 incentive and felt that it was worth the risk to, as far as not providing an incentive to the other staff. Because there is a little bit of, there is a different situation. I think all of our staff, you know, we continue to struggle with wages, given the fact that we are surrounded by bigger communities that pay a lot more than we do. I will say anecdotally speaking, I don't think our wages for other staff are anywhere near as off as they are for the PD, as the numbers that are in the packet are demonstrating. So, you know, that was kind of my intent why I was initially not proposing anything for their employees. I am greatly concerned about the impact on other staff and how all the rest of the staff are going to be made to feel if the PD officers, the sworn officers, are provided a $5,000 retention incentive, and they are not. Ultimately, the board has to make a decision that feels is best, and I do think it is really important that the board hear from the chief and lieutenant. I know there are some concerns about some of the things, the statements that I've made in my memo, but I make those because I have seen it, and I think that the chief and lieutenant would be more apt to be able to speak to the state of morale in the department and where that is coming from. I don't want to put them on the spot. I already kind of gave them a heads up. But ultimately, the village is going to have, and I do agree with the personnel committee's, you know, recommendation about bringing together a committee. One of the things about their recommendation that I really liked was this idea of bringing in not just, you know, members of the personnel committee or members of the board, but trying to bring in a wide swath of people in the community to really evaluate the issue and kind of have a long-term conversation. And I think that's a really good idea to do that. The challenge is the situation that we're in at this very moment. And the decision is, quite frankly, do you want to have a department right now or not? Because again, I'm not trying to sensationalize it, and chief and lieutenant can speak to this, but that is very much the barrel we are staring down right now. So if it's okay, I'd like.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, any questions for Sharon or for Shabnam on this before I ask Chief Barrow and Lieutenant Weitzel to add commentary? Mark?
Two questions. First is, we've heard already this evening a couple times about collective bargaining, collective bargaining agreement. I don't know, when I looked at this issue, I didn't see that the bargaining issue was really relevant. The issue is, are we losing department members to other municipalities? And I don't see necessarily how the collective bargaining agreement holds them here if they can earn higher benefits and higher pay in another municipality. Am I missing something?
No, I mean, my understanding from some of the comments were made was the concern that if we do something now that is going to, and I may be misunderstanding, it's how I perceive the comments. Is that the concern is by doing something now, it essentially would give the union more leverage, I guess, in future bargaining sessions. And I think the thing to keep in mind, and there's pros and cons to this, but the village does currently benefit from the fact that they are not at that 2,500 population threshold that triggers mandatory bargaining. So the village arbitration, arbitration. So there is still, in some ways, thankfully, still a lot of control and flexibility for the village. If they do an incentive right now, that doesn't mean it's not increasing their wages permanently. So it's a one-time sort of band-aid type thing. Their pay would continue to stay the same. I do think that the village needs to evaluate that when it comes up for renegotiation, which would be, we did a 3-year contract, so the next contract would be negotiated next year in 25. In 25. But no, in terms of, practicality, the contract, the union contract doesn't have any applicability. I do want to just real quick point out, we have, Leanne, sorry, who is the, she heard this was going to be, she's a union rep, union attorney for negotiations for.
And the bargaining
agent. Thank you. Sorry, I was going to write. There we go.
You're good.
For the union, but she heard this was, and she wanted to be available in case there were any questions on that side. So she is here. But no, I don't think that, in my opinion, that the contract has had any impact on this. Yeah.
Okay. And the second question I had for you was with regard to the $5,000. Was there any discussion thought given to whether there was any clawback associated with that? So we award the $5,000 bonus to an officer, nothing to prevent that officer from leaving the next day. Was that the way this thing structured? And if it is, why? What's the reasoning behind that?
Because and I will say this, I mean, we are recommending that it be implemented over 5 pay periods, or 2.5 months. I mean, at the end of the day, we still could leave at any point during that. We have typically done the callbacks. However, what we're really trying to do is send a message to the department, to the officers that says, we see the data and we see that there is an issue that needs to be discussed. We can't fix that right now, but we are acknowledging kind of where we're at. So I think it would send the wrong message and would actually do more harm than good if we required it to be connected to a fallback position.
So, thank you.
Questions for the Luann, the union representative? Otherwise, I'm going to ask the chief and the lieutenant like so to comment as they feel that. Chief?
Over there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Chief Farrell, thank you.
We'll get you on camera, Chief.
Okay. So let's first off, talking with Sharon about this, I learned a lot more about not only my job, but about how the village functions as far as where money comes from and all that. And I appreciate that because it helped me be more effective and think things through things better than I had done. So I've been on, so at the recognition dinner, I was recognized for 5 years. When I came on to the department 5 years ago, well, as a full timer, I came full time. I initially came back to policing. There was a message earlier asking why someone would come from Madison to this department. I'm the only person that's done that, and it was because I had retired from the city of Madison. I wanted to get back into policing. I came here part-time. I was working Maple Bluff part-time. At that time, they couldn't find a qualified applicant to fill a full-time spot. So I agreed to come on full-time, and here I am. So I was initially a full-time officer working the 3 to 11 shift. Worked that for a while, then the lieutenant left, and I thought, if I'm gonna be here, I might as well work day shift and make more money. I took the lieutenant spot. At that point, I was the lowest second in command in a police department in the county, lowest paid. That remained for a while until that came up a little bit, but currently it still remains that our second in command, Lieutenant Weitzel, is one of the lowest paid people in that position in the county. I do okay. I honestly, I can't complain about my pay, but I'll get to that more in a minute. We've been basically down on staffing since I came on. That's why I came on full-time. We've been in that position. The only time we've been recently up full speed is since after the referendum, we were able to get raises and we brought on another officer. We had that staff. During that time though, and talking about the contract and that, our officers, the contract went through, we had a 23 to 25 contract. Since that time, other communities have redone their contracts in 23 and 24, and they've all jumped up quite a bit. Again, moving, and at the time we did ours, and by ours, I mean the 4 officer level and detective, those are people that are actually represented by the union. You still have a sergeant, lieutenant, and a chief that are not union officers. But at that time, it had actually moved us to about middle of the pack, and we were actually looking really good. We were able to recruit a couple people. People that we recruited though, they were known to us. Like we handpicked those people. Like Ted, one of our guys that's leaving, he's leaving policing altogether. He got another job offer that no one in policing can touch. He's going back. It's a government job, but I mean, he's getting like a $20 an hour raise. So we didn't take that. But he's leaving policing altogether. The last officer we left he did this long enough. He said, basically, I don't like being a police officer and I can't live on this money. Basically, I can't afford to buy a house. So I have to do something else. So we ended up with everybody else moving up, we're now down towards the bottom of it. And you know, like our starting pay at $58,000 a year that's a difficult one. That's another factor. And our other person that might possibly leave is like, I like being able to pay my mortgage, but I want to be able to do things too, and I can't unless I work overtime. But then I'm working overtime and work-life balance. I don't want to work all the time. He's got a potential offer coming from Dane County Sheriff, which is at the top of the scale. And you can't blame him for doing that. He would move from somewhere around $34 an hour or something now, you think? And he would go up into about $44 an hour, somewhere in there, in those ranges. That department offers when you retire, every year you get $5,500 put into an account to help pay for healthcare, in addition to your sick leave payout. We get a sick leave payout, which is great. But there's, you know, those benefits mean a lot to people too, so you have all that happening. So what's happened is, through that time, it's been hard for everyone to recruit since 2016. 2020, it got even worse. People leaving in droves. In fact, I was sitting down having a bowl of soup before I came here. Nightly news was on. The last thing on Lester Holt tonight was tomorrow join us for, we're going to sit down with the head of the LAPD and talk about the nationwide shortage in policing. So tomorrow night, that's the lead on national news. So it is competitive. Other people are moving. It's UWPD just went to $4,000 sign-on bonus with no experience, $5,000 to $11,000 with experience, and their pay is number 2 on the list at the top. So they just stole a guy from another local department, and that guy got $11,000 sign-on bonus plus a raise. That's what we're competing against. It's the same market. People will say, well, it's sleepy Shorewood Hills, it's sleepy McFarland, it's, you know, it's a suburb, it's not the city, they're not as busy. Just last week, one of our friends that we had tried to recruit to our department that couldn't come here because of pay, he went to McFarland and he was the lead car in the pursuit where he was being shot at. He didn't work for Dane County, he didn't work for Madison.
Should have went to Sherwood. Sorry.
Well, some of the first responders to Middleton's active shooter were Shorewood Hills officers.
I didn't know that.
It's yes. Today I responded to 2 different calls. One of them was an armed subject known to be armed that had taken the car that he was in at gunpoint and was in pursuit through downtown and other areas. It was a Madison pursuit, by the way. I will throw that out there. It was not us, it was Madison, and they do pursuit. The second one was a county pursuit with another armed person that fired shots just a couple days ago. So those are the people that are out there. The cops are cops. It doesn't matter what department they work for, what uniform they wear. I've been doing this a long time. I have never cared what cop is coming to help me. I just want a cop. And stuff, there's a grass median that divides us from the city. So we're seeing the same people in the village as we do everywhere else. Part of the thing that we have going for us, and it came up as why are we doing all these check properties? Why are we doing all these check properties? To get the cops out there so that they're visible and the bad guys say, if I go there, the cops are gonna see me and I'm not gonna wanna be there because there's cops. Madison doesn't, they're running call to call because they can't recruit anybody. And they pay well. My wife is a 22-year MPD cop, and she's making almost as much as I was a chief with 28 years experience. And she's patrol. Anyway, so since 2020, no one's been able to recruit. That's community pushback for several incidents that happened, and it made all of us appear to be the problem that we aren't. But communities have made choices that they've made, and it's now led to people don't want to do this job. They just don't. So to find people is very difficult right now. So we've got one opening we had for sure. We had a second one coming open. So we posted where we all post for hiring, and we had. What we get 6 total applicants with 2 that were
7, 3 with the academy, 4 without.
Yeah, so of those 3 that had the academy, one of them left the department under bad circumstances. I will not hire him because I'm not gonna be that guy that brings on somebody else's problem. The other guy couldn't make it off of training with another large agency where he had a lot of resources available to him. Here, that's another thing of it's not Madison, it's a smaller agency, so it's like easier is the thought. It's not, because here you're it. When I go to a call, I have no resources. It's me. I have to know what I'm doing. And I have to know where to go with this. And it could potentially be a life-threatening situation. I have to know what I'm doing, whether it's even just responding to a medical call. I have to be able to act. If it's a person that's a threat to someone else, I have to be able to act. I have to know what I'm doing. With Madison, you've got however many backup units you need. A sergeant, in the case of someone new, they're going to have field training officers and all that, and they can bounce stuff off of all those people. Here, you're it. So even if we have another agency come up to help us, it's ours, and we have to deal with it. There's backup. They're not going to take over the call. They're not going to. It's so bringing someone directly out of the academy that has 0 experience. I mean, I've been doing this long time. Between the 2 of us, there's over 50 years experience. We can go on a call together, and we might have a difficult time figuring out what to do. So now take someone straight out of the academy that has no experience being a police officer, here, go police this village now, and it's, we have to be careful about who we put into that position, it's not fair to them. If they don't know what they're doing, it's not fair to the community. So, you know, we can't take that brand new person that doesn't know what they're doing, we can't take the person that doesn't know what they're doing with training, and we have to look at that and say, you know, if it was a surgeon, would you take this guy that can't pass medical school, or are you gonna now make him a surgeon? No, you're not. And so we have to watch out for that things, and we're doing that with people that we're giving the power to take someone's rights away from them, to lock them up, to use force, to you know, make very, you know, powerful decisions that they have to know what they're doing. So we ended up with a recruiting process where we got very few applicants, nobody that's anybody that we want out of that, and now so we have to post again. But the good applicants are going to the higher paying departments, and in fact, most of those people are being recruited by those departments before they even have openings, because they're able to say, hey, when you get out of college, you're gonna come to us and we're gonna give you all the training you need, we're gonna pay you well. I mean, I know I go to the chiefs meetings and we have conversations about what are you doing about this, and the conversation is, we're recruiting people, we're not just putting out applications, but we can do it because we have teams of people, we have enough people in our agency, we can go out and recruit people because we can spare those people to go out and recruit. We can't even fill shifts, so I can't send someone out to a college to recruit people because they have to work.
And Chief,
Yes.
those recruits then are being hired by those agencies and being paid to go to the academy. And I think that's something that, you know, I've been in municipal government for 35 years too. And that's something that, you know, in the last 3 or 4 years is very new.
It is.
I would never have thought to pay a recruit to go to the academy for 6 months and have, you know, pay and benefits to send them to the academy. We expected them to have the academy before they came to put their application in. So that is a big change, and only larger agencies can do that. Can keep that position open, cover it with overtime shifts while that person is at the academy. And that's been very difficult.
We can't even get anyone into the academy. If we brought, like right now, if we had someone that we wanted to put into the academy, because of so many departments putting through people, they used to have so many spots open that people could just put themselves through the academy. Those don't even exist anymore. And for us now, I think the next opening was fall of 25. Yeah, so so fall of 2025, there isn't even an opening in an academy around here. You know, Middleton's sending a guy to Fox Valley.
Yeah,
Because they were able to find.
Fitchburg has sent all of their recruits up to Appleton and
Yeah.
Fox Valley.
Yeah.
So I just had a quick follow-up. So what's the reason for that? The teaching resources aren't available, the space resources aren't available, I'm not understanding.
The candidate pool.
Okay.
There used to be enough people that would put themselves through the academy.
Yeah.
That like when I came into this, when I applied for Madison, well, it started before there. But just for an example, when I applied to Madison, there was, I think, 1,400 applicants for 32 positions. Right now, my wife is actually on the team that does the testing and all that when they bring people on, and they normally will put 30 some people through in a day of physical agility, written test, and then application review. And this last go around on a day they had, I think they started with 18, and just after like application review, they were down to 6 that they put through. There's nobody out there that's qualified. And I mean, they're getting that many because they're gonna pay them a ton of money and give them 18% more because they have a 4-year degree and you know. Where we're gonna get to, and this is just, it's so already with Ted leaving in a few weeks. The comparison, and I don't mean this as any disrespect to our other people, because I didn't pull all of Jamie's numbers and overtime and sergeants and other people that were working, but just using me as an example. In 2024. So when I came on as chief, I absolutely agree that because I can't sit in the office all day, I can't not go out. unfortunately, and I don't want to go on a tangent here, but some things have happened here that have kept me from continuing to pursue things that I would normally do. So I had a vision for our department that's been knocked down.
Can you clarify? Clarify.
yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah, there, just, I mean, different things that have been reviewed, conversations that have been had. Like, I understand like pursuit policy being questioned and all that. And having questions, but I was never really asked any questions. It was just this, you know, we need to change this Madison's. And so send it to public health and safety. And, you know, so during that time now, am I gonna go out and try to get into things? No, but that's how the police do things proactively. They go out and they look for stuff. And that keeps things from happening here, because when you go to Hilldale, you know, we may be over, you know, like, well, they were way out on the west side doing something. But what stores do people in the village go to? They don't stay in the village. People are going out. So we're a team, all the police. And if I know that Madison doesn't have anybody in the area, and there's a call going on over on Seagull, I'm gonna go to that, and it may force me to do something that the police do. And if I don't feel like I am supported in doing that, it's gonna keep us from reaching out and doing that work. There's a couple agencies in the area that the cops feel like they can go there and be police. The community says, we want you to go out there and be the police. Monona. Solid example of what I'm saying. The cops there, they go to work, they know they can go be the police. Bad stuff happens sometimes. It's not their fault that bad things happen. Bad guys run. That's, yeah.
Clarification. So you gave us the example of that in situation where a discussion occurs without you being questioned, like no having some advance notice and being part of the discussion. You kind of came at that.
Mhm.
Do you have another example?
Yeah, I mean, there's it's just the standing item on the agenda is police policies being, you know, a board, you know, thing to go through and everything. I get that. But it's like there was, over the last couple of years, there's been a pursuit policy, there's been, why are we doing property checks? You know, why are we doing this? There's continually been a question in the board agenda for why are the police doing this? But
Well, I do have some comments I want to make, but I don't want to interrupt their one.
you know, I was just trying to stay on topic of.
Okay,
You're feeling questioned all the time.
So-
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna,
Shout them in Mark.
I wrote down some comments that I would like to share. Number one, I, as a trustee, feel it is my duty to vote according to the Personnel Committee's recommendation. There were 5 individuals, they had deep, long discussions, I believe you two were there, and they made a motion, and I am responsible for supporting that here. But this word morale continues to come up, and I believe that morale starts at the top. Let me get through all of this. Morale starts
This is
at
the top.
You're right. Morale starts here, and morale starts with you guys in your department. You set the tone, you set the culture, you determine if you're going to create a high functioning culture or it's going to be a toxic culture. And the more you invest in your staff, the more you're going to get back. But if you can't bring your best because you're exhausted, because you're working 14 days in a row without a day off, because the staff is not supported, that you're not supported by the board, that's on us. You have to, the one thing that they always say to parents is like, you're not gonna, if you're exhausted, you're not gonna be a parent if you're not sleeping. Like self-care is the most important thing. And so, I wish this phone would stop ringing. We have to take care of you guys so that you can be your best at your job. I've lived, and I want to kind of echo what Marilyn said. I've lived in 4 countries. I've traveled to 25 countries. I have interacted with thousands of people in my career all over the world. And I've lived in Sherwood Hills for 5 years. And I genuinely believe that the people of Shorewood Hills are genuine and sincere, and that every single one of the village residents supports the police department. I guarantee that under John's watch, he will not let this police department collapse. And that every time the police department has come for support, we've supported you. There was a referendum and we took it to the referendum and got the votes for it. If the village and the board want to question policing and how we can meet the department's needs while not going bankrupt, that doesn't change our support for the police department. We have to get out of a binary thinking where you're for police or you're anti-police. We have to allow ourselves to have discussions without causing police officers anxiety. I would be failing you if I cared about keeping everybody happy and not realizing that we're spending 75% of our revenues on the police department, which is what I've been told, and that at some point it's going to collapse. And so to not have discussions is not helping anybody. But you should trust that you're a part of the discussion and that the discussion is for the benefit. If you say that, you know, since 2016, you guys can't recruit, that it's not just us, that it's other municipalities, you gotta talk about it. Like, we gotta figure out, do we you know, give the house checks to other people to do, not police. It's an idea. It shouldn't scare people into thinking that they're not gonna have their job. That's all I have to say, is that if I didn't care about you guys, we would only avoid the discussion. And that's not what this is about. You guys should be a part of the discussion and not afraid of the discussion. And you should feel confident that the board has your back.
Appreciate it. Shannon, thanks for that. Mark?
Yes, so Chief, from time to time, suggestions are made that maybe the police department ought to go the way Fire and EMS went, which is to contract out the service to Madison, to some surrounding community. I was wondering if you could just explain to the board, as best you can, what the implications of that would likely be. Put yourself in the place of your Madison's police chief. I come to you from Shorewood and I say, we're going to contract this out like we did our fire service. What kind of service are you going to provide? Forget the cost. Just what are you prepared to do?
So, well, first off, they're gonna say at Madison, we don't do contract policing. So.
It's a non-starter.
So there's one,
So you go to Middleton.
Middleton does not do contract policing. The only agency that does contract policing in this area is the Dane County Sheriff. We've spoken to them before the referendum because that question came up.
Yeah.
And their answer was, we don't have the personnel to bring on another municipality and contract with. The cost is probably gonna be equivalent to what we cost, because you're gonna have to, and you're gonna get maybe 1 or 2 officers assigned, depending on what the contract is, how many you would choose to have. But one shift takes 2 to 3 people to fill if you want to do 24-hour, or not even 24-hour coverage. You want to do one shift 7 days a week, takes 3 people. So if you want to do 3 shifts 7 days a week, you're going to need upwards of many more officers than that. Squad cars, all of their equipment, everything is all, they're not just gonna pay for it, that's all gonna go in the contract.
And that's assuming they even have the staff available
Absolutely,
to be able to provide the service
right.
to the village as opposed to meeting the other commitments that they already have.
Well, and then, so outside of, if the county were to assign a contract deputy to the village, yes, they would be assigned to the village. If they're not available, so right now Shorewood Hills is in the same county beat as Mount Horeb. So right now, if we go to not having anyone available to work here, the beat that they're pulling someone is from for the county is as large as Shorewood Hills to Mount Horeb and beyond. So the deputy that might get that call could be in Belleville. And they're gonna come and just finish this one thought. They're gonna respond to that call, but they're gonna request mutual aid from Madison if they have anybody Midtown that's available, and if not, maybe Middleton. If they have anybody available, if not UW, and they're gonna respond, stabilize it to the county that's there. But there would be, frankly, there would be no patrol, there would be no traffic enforcement, there would be no door checks, there'd be no constant presence, there would be no parking enforcement, there'd be no one in the office to answer the phone calls, there'd be no walk-up calls, all of that. There would be no personalized service, there would be no, hey, you're in my world right now because this is the call I'm on. You called me, I'm here, I'm talking about this, no one's gonna follow up on a bike complaint. None of that's gonna, it's gonna be emergency calls, only, basically.
Thank you, Sean.
Help me understand what contract policing means, because it's all over America where two startups merge. They come
Non-policing.
together. I know non-policing, non-policing, but that's what
Unless
I
they form
have.
a municipal, like a
Right.
metro agency that is, so part of the problem with it is. Shorewood Hills is its own municipality. The police that have jurisdiction in Shorewood Hills is the Shorewood Hills Police Department. I don't have jurisdiction in Madison. I do because we are all deputized by the Dane County Sheriff. So some agencies in the county are not deputized by the sheriff, so they can't act outside of their jurisdiction. I have full jurisdiction anywhere in the state 24 hours a day, or not state, in the county, 24 hours a day. So if I'm, like, I make traffic, I live out on the north side, I have a take-home squad car. I will stop people on County Highway M that are doing something they shouldn't be doing. I have jurisdiction there because I'm deputized. Madison officers can come into the village and act, the county, like the sheriff, they have jurisdiction all over the county because they're the Dane County Sheriff. State Patrol throughout the state, UW Police throughout the state, Capitol Police throughout the state, they have jurisdiction. All the local municipalities have jurisdiction kind of everywhere in the county because of the sheriff giving them that power. But our primary jurisdiction is Shorewood Hills. Madison's primary jurisdiction is Madison, and unless we say, please come over to the village and do something to help us, they're not gonna do that. There's city officers that work midtown that we've been on calls with that are, we didn't even know this was Shorewood Hills.
Okay.
I think, Shabnam, if I'm not mistaken, I think what you're asking is, there are some, Dane County does do some contract policing in the area in Dane County. They do contract policing in Deerfield and Cambridge. They do not have their own police departments in Deerfield and Cambridge. Years ago, they were maybe in the same situation as you were in, and they chose to remove their police departments and contract with the county. At that time, the county was staffed and it was taking on those contracts. So they have a contract deputy, they call them, or a community deputy in Deerfield, Cambridge, Mazomanie, and Black Earth.
Westport Dane.
And Westport, well,
that
Westport
really-
Dane
is
is
that-
out of the districts.
Okay.
But they have, I believe it's 4 community deputies in Black Earth, Mazo, Deerfield, and Cambridge. They're not 24/7. If those deputies are on vacation or on our regular days off, then it's just pulling a deputy for an emergency call out of those districts. So either out of Northeast or Southeast. So you might have a call in Deerfield that a deputy out of the Southeast District precinct in Stoughton has to go to Deerfield, or they'll call Marshall for assistance into Deerfield. So those are what we consider community policing in this area.
Dwayne, thanks for that. Shabna?
So I understand jurisdiction, I understand that. But I also hear that it's not just Shorewood Hills, it's Maple Bluff, it's Madison. They can't hire, they can't recruit, everybody's short-staffed. They don't have the ability to contract because they can't manage their own jurisdiction. But why not consider, and when I mean consider, I mean brainstorm, have a discussion around, let's change jurisdiction so that that you guys pool together and have the jurisdiction of Maple Bluff and here.
I think part of that is you're gonna run into the difference is in like, just.
Policy.
Yeah, policy
Ordinances.
and
Ordinances.
Yeah, like I have jurisdiction in Madison, but I can't write a village ordinance ticket. And so I have to, like, for something that is very, minimal, I then now have to charge them with a state crime. And the DA's office is like, knock it off, we're not charging. See, so you run into that kind of stuff. There's
It's
just that culturally in each community is very different. I worked here and I worked in Maple Bluff. They're very different.
Last question, my last question. What solutions do you guys have for the village where 75% of revenues goes to the police department and we gotta keep up with the wages? What
It's
solutions-
I
not
don't believe it's
75%, as
75%.
I clarified, personnel meeting is a third.
So now it's 30%, 33% of our revenues. Is that, I don't know, let me just say this, let me rephrase the question. What is your recommendation when the village has limited funds, and capacity, and abilities?
Mhm.
But this is a Band-Aid. This is not gonna solve the problem. This is a Band-Aid. What, do you have thoughts?
Well, I'm not in control of the money in it, and so I don't know, I mean, because I don't have. I'm not in on what the village has in different, accounts, I have no clue. We asked for it, we put in what we took for the budget, but if I could just for 1 second, I just want to give an example of just something of where things are at. And what I started to say was, when I came on as chief, I agreed to be a working chief. And again, I'm using me as an example because I know my numbers and I didn't pull up like Jamie's and Nick's and all that. In 2024, when we've had decent staffing so far, I have worked and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've heard from my counterparts in my department is, prior to me working as a working chief and covering patrol shifts, that's not been the norm for the village. The chief has not covered patrol. So in 2024, yeah, they've been there and they've gone to calls, but they're not primary patrol cops. In 2024 so far, 33% of my shifts that I've worked have been patrol shifts. In 2023, 34% of my time was on patrol, covering patrol shifts. So in addition to doing chief stuff, patrol, that much time, which I can make work. But then I also had significant amount of overtime time that I worked covering other shifts. To keep us at the 24-hour coverage, just me, and for me, it's unpaid time because I'm salaried. So I'm working the better part of 2 jobs and not getting anything when I work overtime. Now, do I black book some time and move things around because I'm salaried? Absolutely. And if anybody told me not to do that, I'm out. In 2022, we were down substantially for quite a while, trying to recruit, and this is where we're headed in weeks. And in 2022, I had 54% of my time that I worked, I was covering patrol. I had 92. That's right. But that was hours of uncompensated overtime that I work. Now, I don't mind, I'm more than happy to help cover overtime and all that, but I'm not gonna continue to do it for free. I can't, physically can't do it. It takes away from other things in my life if I'm not compensated for it. This is my job, it's not anything more than that. The lieutenant and sergeant, they have moved their shifts around. They've completely, she should be working day shift. She should be here when I'm not here. She's been moving to 3 to 11. She's covered night shifts. I don't know how many times I've come in at 3 a.m. to make sure we had someone from 3 and I work 3 to 3. I'll stay till 7. Ashley's constantly doing that. Lieutenant and sergeant both get overtime when they work overtime. They said, I don't get that. But I mean, overtime costs are gonna go up quite a bit. And that's just what's gonna happen. Those are, I mean, looking back at the time where we were short, that's the kind of thing that's gonna happen. So we're gonna have less covered. Right now, when we're at full staff, we can pretty much run 2 people most of the time. we're gonna go down to one person and have a lot of time where we can't fill someone. But and the way we get to that is by, we're not getting the applicants right now because they're looking at it, and like as I said, in this pay comparison. The ones highlighted in yellow, those are the ones that are hiring right now. And of those, our pay is lowest, there's no bonus, there's no sign-on bonus. There's no education incentive, there's no significant bump for being a lateral move. The people we want to recruit are the ones that we can get from another department, because they're gonna be ready to go. Bart. Guy we got last year, Bart, came from another department, 20 years experience as a cop. We could pretty much hand him the keys, show him the village once, and he's hitting it, functioning. I don't lose a minute's sleep when Bart's working. If I had someone fresh that doesn't know what they're doing, or they've been a problem somewhere else, I'm not gonna be able to sleep, because that entire time I'm waiting for my phone to ring because something happens. We can't be that department. But those are the things that people look for when they look and they see Short Hills, oh, Short's hired, Marshall's hired, Capital's hired, Verona's hired. Wait, Verona's got a $4,500 sign-on bonus, and they pay just at starting. But you know, and the one I look at is a 5-year officer with a 4-year degree, because that's what we want. Those are the people we want to hire. Someone that has a little bit of experience and has a degree. For our pay, starting on that would be $33.21, so $69,000 a year. If they go to Verona, they're gonna be up at $20,000 more. They're gonna make $83,000, that same officer. Why would they even apply? And that's what we're seeing. So are these other agencies able to hire people and get them? Yes. Does it take Madison longer sometimes to get someone and get things full up to speed? Yes, but they've got 500 to draw from. It's why some of our policies can be a lot more lenient, because I can say, Jamie, knock it off. I don't have to cover 500 people with a piece of paper that they all know what not to do, because I can't have control of them. I can go to someone and say, dude, not here. And they go, we're good. So.
Shabnam and then Dietmar. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to give a $5,000 retention bonus to all current police officers, and a recommendation to the board to immediately have a subcommittee address this issue.
That was number one.
Wasn't.
No, that was a different.
It's different. It's exclusive to the police officers.
Yeah. Do we have a second?
I wanted to separate. Oh, good.
I wasn't gonna respond to the motion, I just thought it was.
I was gonna separate the officers from the rest of the staff.
But, yeah, there's a motion on the table. I think we're
Yeah,
gonna second on it.
do we have a
Or
second?
not, and if we don't, we move on.
Shabnam, could you restate the motion?
I make a motion to give a $5,000 retention bonus to all current police officers. And a recommendation to the board to immediately have a subcommittee address this issue. Because this is a temporary band-aid, we have to fix it moving forward.
For the long-term issue, that's what I was gonna say, I think we have a short-term issue here, and we have a long-term issue.
We need a second. I'm sorry.
Shalom, why don't I second that just to get on the
Oh,
table?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Dietmar. No, you're fine.
Forgive my,
We just need a second before we can discuss. We have a second, so go ahead.
that was it, I think we have two issues here, and we have to take this seriously and involve various committees. To look at how not that I'd want a different option than the police force that we already have, but it seems like we have no option, because it would be impossible, even if it made sense financially or otherwise, to bring in another force, and we have a very competent force. We need to figure out how to keep it.
Thank you for that, Dietmar.
Yeah, Chief, I guess first off, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all you do, Lieutenant Singh. I think the amount of commitment and service that you do provide for this community can't be understated. I didn't want to ask any questions. Actually, as a matter of fact, I just wanted to address the rest of the board with my consensus, but I think I'll do that later. But in conversation, or I guess in your comments, the question that I have, and it really amounts to an educational piece here, not just for the board, but I think for the public at large, listening and watching this or trying to understand this. Can you categorically say that our options to have contract services by the city of Madison are slim to none? By the city of Middleton, slim to none. And even with the Dane County Sheriff being our overarching stopgap measure, their ability to provide service is there, albeit it's at a very reduced level than what we're used to in the village right now. And it's not supposed to be a trick question.
No, the
so
question was, can I categorically say that?
Yes,
Let me just refer to something quickly. Can I categorically say that that is not gonna happen?
I couldn't hear all of that. I'm sorry.
Can I categorically say that Middleton, Madison, I mean,
They're not
the county,
interested
if they're not gonna do
in
contract leasing and county, maybe, but it's not gonna be much for service.
and I don't want to get hung up on the technicality of the question.
and
I guess
I would
just as an
say-
education.
I would say no.
Yeah,
And
that's,
I will tell you that the county still, even with their lateral transfer, is still about 35 deputies short. So their overtime costs, their ability to take time off is still hindered by the fact that they were 50 deputies short. I believe yesterday I was told they're still about 35.
when we reached out to the county and had that exact question at that time, like if it had done right then, you asked that question, I would say absolutely no other agencies. Gonna do it.
So our options as a village are to maintain what we have, and reduce services because we don't have staff to meet it. Or, and please don't take this the wrong way, we don't continue on with the police department and have the Dane County Sheriff provide personal protection services in the jurisdiction.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's-
If they,
If-
if they are able and willing to
So
take
it's,
that
and
on.
I guess please say that for the camera, if they're willing and able.
If they are willing and able to take that on, and that would be a discussion with them.
Understood. I have no more questions, and at some point in time, I'll provide some observations.
Thank you, Dean. I think I saw Rob's hand up and then.
Thank you.
So a question for Sheldon, so the motion, so, yeah, I'm very interested in how you worded this, to have this issue be studied further about more the long-term structural issues, which Sharon has told us this is a win-win solution, so I'm grateful that you're thinking about that. So your motion was for the $5,000 retention, right? And it did not include the $5,000 hiring incentive, is that right?
It did not include a $5,000 hiring
Yeah.
incentive.
So I'm just wondering if, because your intention was to separate out the police issue from the other workers for the moment. I'm wondering if it makes sense to have your motion also include the hiring incentive.
If I remember correctly, the personnel committee discussed it and discussed bonuses to non-police officers and felt that the most important critical thing was to give the $5,000 retention bonus, but to have this immediate subcommittee look into the hiring bonus and long-term solution and everything else.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because, we have two recommended motions here. One, which is the bonuses, the first one covers police officers as well as the other village staff. The second recommended motion is for a hiring incentive for new police officers. And so, do you understand? I'm just wondering if it makes sense to.
Sure. Well,
I'm happy to hear other thoughts about that.
I've
Otherwise, we're looking
felt-
at potentially three separate motions, which is fine.
So I felt that it was necessary for me to bring to the board the motion that was unanimously supported by the personnel committee. The motions that are in the packet are Sharon's motions.
Right.
Carol?
Yeah, I agree with the intention of what Rob was saying, that if we need to stop the bleeding, it's very much what it sounds like, that we don't want to be down net officers, so retention bonus is a good thing, and hiring bonus would be a good thing to keep people there, bring new ones in. And I suppose that we can address the other employees in another motion. I also have other comments that I wanted to make, but they're more along the morale issue than the pay issue, so I don't know if we want to separate those.
That's up to you, Carol.
Okay,
Did you want to continue?
yeah, I'll continue, that's all right.
And then Mark.
Yeah, and then, so yes, thank you for being here, both Lieutenant and Chief, and talking about these difficult subjects, and it feels like we've been here before. And here we are again, so that's frustrating as well. So about the morale, you mentioned the pursuit policy. And so I have to say, as chair of PHS, I always feel on quagmire, trying to interpret or create policy that relates to police, because I know that I don't know. I know that I don't know all the rules around police, all the culture around policing, all the difficulties, the whole thing, it's not my wheelhouse. So, as with the example of the pursuit policy, the board received a letter from the Mayor of Madison, making certain complaints, attesting to certain things, but no matter what the veracity of those was, PHS was tasked with looking into it, because we feel that at some point we must make some kind of response. So, what would have been a supportive way, or if we were Monona, how would we have handled that? What would have been a supportive response that reflects support of the police?
Well, I can't speak for Monona. I know what's happened with, some of their similar type incidents.
I guess I didn't mean that specifically. What I meant was, how would a supportive municipality, a municipality that supports its police department, how would they have dealt with that situation?
There was more to it than just the specific board meeting and decision. The nature, yes, the mayor's letter had some inaccuracies. Basically, everything in the letter was inaccurate. And I provided a response to that. But it didn't seem to have much of an impact. It was still, brought into question. And I don't have a problem with our policies being questioned and reviewed in that, but that policy specifically came after several years of iterations and working on it, and from people in our field of work, with made up of best practices reviewed by the people from the state, that's what they do, that's what they put together. And so, for us, it's a solid policy that has, it has the components in it that it needs to have. And other than just being a downright no pursuit policy, that's the only other choice, the other thing that could be made to it. Once it starts to get tweaked to the point where, you know, like, well, what specific incident will result in this being allowed? Well, then it becomes unusable for anybody because it's so nitpicky. And then the cops are like, I'm not allowed to go out and do my job because I have to, when this happens, I have to look at, well, does this fit into the thing, or am I getting jammed up because I violated policy? So it has to be somewhat, you know, allowing of things in a, you know, worded in a way that it is because of that, yet it still allows for another agency to say, no, you're coming into our jurisdiction and we have a problem with that. There's an out, and so we covered those things. But that, like I said, it was after a couple of years of work to get that dialed in. Yet it's then, you know, questioned despite the triggering mechanism for that review was incorrect. It was flat out wrong. But it still resulted in the same action as if it had been correct.
So Sharon, I'm sorry, Chief, Sharon and then Mark.
I wanna probably maybe to Carol's question, and I will tell you as the administrator and chief, I don't want to speak for the chief, but as an administrator's perspective, when that came in and how I think Chief, what Carol's getting at is how could the board have done things differently that would not have made the department feel like it was not valued and that it was not supported. I will tell you as the administrator, when I looked at that, I saw an elected official trying to tell the village, an elected official in another community trying to tell the village how it needed to operate. And instead of listening to the staff, listening to your chief, having those inaccuracies pointed out and saying, okay, thank you, Mayor of Madison, for your input on how we do things in the village, and move on, it became all of a sudden an issue that the committees have to address because the elected official from another community complained about what we were doing and wasn't even accurate in the things that were being said. And what that does is sends a message to the chief that he doesn't know what he's doing or that you don't trust him. It sends a message to the staff that they don't know what they're doing and they don't trust them. It's not about the village reviewing policies. It's about the way that it has gone about it. And when you have an elected official from another community come on and tell the board, you need to do this because we think you're doing it wrong, and the village jumps, it sends the wrong message. So I think, again, that's how I think the board could have done differently.
Thank you, Sharon. Mark?
Yeah, so I don't want to belabor this pursuit policy too much, but I do have to say that when that came to the board, I opposed that. And the reason I opposed it was because we had all the facts. We had the detailed policy the chief provided us. He described what went on. We had what came from the city. I think we had enough. We didn't need to pass the buck on to a committee to try to figure this out. And I felt strongly that our policy was correct. I didn't remember any board member objecting to our policy in any way. I just thought it was wrong. For slightly different reasons than Sharon, but I felt it was wrong. So, but let me get back to the issue on the table right now. And that is that I'm going to oppose this motion. And the reason I'm going to oppose it is twofold. First, it drops off this issue of installment payments and include that in the motion, which should be part of the motion. I think we have to be careful when we make kind of ad hoc motions, you know, spur of the moment. Just need to be real careful about that to make sure that that's really what we intended. And the second reason I'm going to oppose it is getting back to the pursuit policy is that what subcommittee are we talking about? What's the charge that this subcommittee has? I think we shouldn't just toss stuff to committees saying, well, we have a problem with the police. Will you guys figure it out? I don't think that's responsible of us to do that. Now, I don't think necessarily personnel committee intended in that way, but I think the reality is if we're going to delegate some responsibility to the committee, it ought to be very clear what their charge is, what they're responsible for, and to be sure that it's not something that the board itself shouldn't take care of. So, anyway, I'm gonna oppose the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
Mark, I think you've been on this board quite some time, and normally what people do is they offer a friendly amendment. And if you offered a friendly amendment to say, you know, I'd like the retention bonus to be paid out in installments, I would welcome it. That's a nice, mature thing to do, as opposed to let's oppose the motion and start fresh.
It's not personal.
So I will happily accept a friendly amendment to the motion.
Well, it seems to me that we had a first recommended motion by Sharon, and I'm still a little confused about what the difference between the personnel proposal was and what is here. If Shabnam, you could articulate what the difference is here from personnel to what Sharon's is, then maybe we could amend Sharon's motion as written to reflect that difference.
Sure, I think I'm happy to
Might be an easier place to start, something we've got written down.
So the first recommended motion reads to authorize the provision of retention incentives to all full-time and regular part-time staff in the amount of $5,000 for sworn officers, $1,000 for all other full-time staff, and $500 to regular part-time staff to be paid in 5 installments, beginning with April 26th payroll at a total cost of $55,000, which I understand is the right amount. The Personnel Committee decided against offering any retention incentive for non-sworn officers.
I see. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Just from a mechanics standpoint, and one comment, so in terms of the mechanics with the motion on, if there is a minor adjustment, there can be a friendly amendment. There is also an option to amend the motion, and if it's significantly different, it would require a vote of the board to decide whether to amend the motion that's on the table. If the motion fails, someone can make a new motion. If the motion passes, somebody can make another motion. But I want to clarify something because I've been accused of telling the board to ignore committee recommendations in the past. And I want to clarify, as I'm sure the board understands, my job is to advise the board. My job is not to get up here and parrot what the committees are saying. My job is to provide recommendations on policies. And sometimes, and it has in the past, and it does tonight, sometimes my recommendation conflicts with what the committee has decided. But that is not my job. My job is not to simply parrot what committees are saying. So, yes, tonight, my recommendation, my recommended motion, which I did email and revise because Mark had asked about, and asked a follow-up question. And I realized the wording for some may be confusing and not as clear. And then, yes, when I got another follow-up email asking for the breakdown, I realized I had one too many officers and it was about 5,000 less. But again, my recommendation tonight does differ from the committees, and that is me doing my job.
Thanks, Sharon. How do we want to proceed? I can tell you, I'll just share with you, my problem with the motion was the formation of an immediate subcommittee to address this issue. The reason I pose that is we're going to be talking about priorities as part of the agenda for this meeting. And I think this falls within priorities, but obviously we're going to be identifying priorities for the interim as we bridge this, this transition period. I like the way that Sharon, framed these motions, both the first one and the second. I was going to make a suggestion that instead of maybe a minimum 1-year commitment, maybe it would be 2 years, but that's up to, the board's consideration. But I don't want to get ahead of the discussion we're going to have about priorities that we need to set with our village administrator leading. That's the only thing that gave me a pause. I'm not not dissing personnel committee, ad hoc committee idea. I think that's a fine idea. I think we have to have a larger discussion as a board. Must-haves and things that we have to do. So that's one. Two, this is kind of a precarious time. You look at those list of communities, we're in the 5th percentile. And, I've been on this board now for 12 years. We take care of our own. And that's staff across the board. We've always found a way to meet expectations or try to exceed expectations. The other thing I was going to ask the chief and Jamie, Lieutenant Whiteside, do you still do ride-alongs?
Absolutely.
So it's probably been 10 years for me. I did a ride-along with the officers on a Friday night from 9 p.m. till 3 in the morning. Two different shifts. And it was, in fact, Jamie was one of the officers. And I encourage board members to try to do that if they have an interest.
Yeah,
We absolutely recommend it. We like it when people do it. The last time that was taken up by, I believe it was a board member at the time. It lasted about 15 minutes and I was told I've seen enough and got out of the car. And it wasn't a warm fuzzy feeling for support. I'll tell you that.
I did the full 6 hours, and if we would have pulled someone over at 3 o'clock in the morning, I probably wouldn't have gotten back till about 7 a.m. I'm sorry, I'll just go to Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Just call the vote on
Yes.
Sheldon's motion.
Yeah.
If it passes, then we're done with that part. If it fails, then perhaps another motion will come to the table. And we just gotta move forward.
Can we do a roll call on this as well? Julie?
Yes, let me get a quick copy and paste here so I have a record.
Why do we have to do a roll call? What's the point of it? I'm just curious, why can't we all just raise our hands? Why?
To make the votes clear so that there's no confusion over the ayes and nays.
I think we can all
Yeah.
raise our hands and
Even
see.
before the roll call, it would help me to have the motion read, so I know exactly what we're voting on.
Thank you, Carol. Julie, do you have that?
I'm not sure I have the end of it, so Shabnam, can you correct me if I'm incorrect? I have to offer a $5,000 retention bonus to all current police officers and a recommendation to, and then I got it's
To the board
to the board, thank you.
to immediately have a subcommittee address this issue.
Okay, thank you.
We just see our hands. We see each other's hands, unless there's an
I call the roll
advantage.
call.
There's an advantage.
Call the
Let's
roll
do the
call.
roll call from top, bottom up.
Julie,
Okay,
thanks so much.
do we have a preference in what order I do the roll
No.
call? How about if I just, okay. What's your
Bottom up.
bottom, what is bottom?
Group list, bottom up.
Well, right now I don't have a list, so I was just gonna go around the table.
Sure.
Okay. Bob? Nope,
No,
aye
yes
or
or
nay?
no.
Yes or no?
No, to-
Yes or no to that motion?
You support the motion?
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I thought.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
No, I closed the motion.
Okay. Carol,
No,
Mark,
No,
Shabnam,
Yes.
John,
no.
Dietmar,
No.
and Rob.
Yes.
Yes. So motion fails.
Okay.
5-2.
So, how would we like to proceed?
I'll make another motion and let's just keep going through until we keep this issue settled. So I'll make a motion to authorize the provision of retention incentives to all full-time and regular part-time staff in the amount of $5,000 for sworn officers, $1,000 for all other full-time staff, and $500 for regular part-time staff to be paid in 5 installments, beginning with April 26th payroll at a total cost of $50,000.
Is there a second to that motion?
55,000.
No, it's been corrected.
Emailed it.
Well, that's what.
There was a Sharon corrected or something.
Yeah.
I will second that.
Thank you, Dietmar.
I think if I followed your wording,
I hope it was exactly what was in her memo.
well,
Did I
it depends on what
mess
we're
up?
looking at, because there's nuance for the for the non-sworn full-time staff. Non-sworn full-time staff. Okay, so the non-sworn. And I don't know if that makes a distinction to be honest, I really don't know, but just for.
You seconded it.
Okay. So really either motion will work, all right, but what the question was it including part-time officers? No, it only includes full-time and regular part-time, and that is classified, so regular part-time are often, are not officers, but regular part-time are staff that are regularly scheduled. And the only regular part-time staff that we have is the CSO and the municipal court clerk. So that's the difference, so this would apply to all of our full-time staff, and our two part-time, regular part-time staff.
Which I think you reported to Sheldon on an email was six.
Six
plus-
officers,
plus two, which is the regular part-time.
so the regular part-time are not officers. Those are the court clerk and the CSO.
Right.
So we have 6 officers, we have 12 other full-time staff.
Yep.
And the 2 part-time staff. And to clarify, in case there's questions, anybody who has not, or anyone who has already turned in a letter of resignation will not receive this bonus. That includes me, and that includes the other officer that we've already, who's currently still on staff and will be on staff for this payroll, but will not be, would not receive that. It's a retention incentive. So if you've already said you're leaving, you're not eligible.
Sheldon.
The other full-time staff, the $1,000 to other full-time staff, are they police officers?
No, these are all other full-time staff. So sworn officers, 5,000, 1,000 for all other full-time staff.
So included in that other full-time staff would be Julie.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
We will, Carol, then Sheldon.
Sharon, I'm wondering, how to explore or accomplish the idea of adding in, hiring bonuses. Or that should be best left to another motion.
I separated that in 2 motions because I had a feeling that there may be people who may feel differently about the 2 issues. And I tried to, I felt it would be better to have those separate, especially given the fact that, the personnel committee was wanting to do the ad hoc committee. So I just felt it would be best to address as a separate motion.
Sheldon.
When I was on this board and I tried to get weekly recycling passed, it passed 5-2 with 2 individuals, Mark included, rejecting the motion for weekly recycling. And one of the reasons was it was $10,000 and it was gonna be too expensive and that we didn't have the money. So I find it fascinating that we have $13,000 to give to non-police officers because it would make them feel good if they got it, even though they're not in the same situation as the police officers and we don't have money. It's very interesting how we look at money depending on who writes a motion versus if we have the money for something or not.
That's not why I opposed the recycling motion.
Okay,
It had nothing to do with money.
we'll keep it up and then Rob and then, Bob.
Thanks, John. So I would support this motion. I am in favor of workers getting paid. The village of Shorewood Hills were one of the highest median income census tracts in the Madison area and also in the state. And I think it sends a message when we're seeing this data for our police force that's near the bottom. And I know there's economies of scale, but considering where we are as a village, we need to think about the message that we're sending. But, I'm concerned, Sharon is concerned, she's used the word Band-Aid herself. This is a Band-Aid. So what is the solution? How do we find a solution to these structural problems that have been going on for years? And I don't have a clear answer. I haven't heard a clear answer to that yet. So this motion obviously doesn't address that, but I want to know how are we going to work on it.
I wanted to ask, the chief and lieutenant, the motion that Sharon had put forward, I assume you guys have discussed this, and as far as, I know we'd all, I'd love to give you more, but are you comfortable with this? At this stage?
We had
I
a
mean,
good conversation with the.
And this comes back to
committee.
morale, are you gonna feel happy about this if this happens?
I mean, I think it's definitely a
step in the right
a step, yeah, for sure. I mean, to be able to offer something immediately, I figure if like $4,000, five, the numbers are, I mean, it works out over the course of a year to $2.40 an hour. So if you think of it in that way as a raise, it hits on that, but it's not sustained. So I mean, it's a nice hit to get. But, for someone that's looking long-term, it doesn't make me stay for
Right.
years because I got this one payout.
But assuming that we're addressing that longer term issue.
It absolutely, I mean, some of the people I've talked to, it's sent a message to them, oh, they're working on it. I mean, everybody's reasonable and says, we know you can't just like, all of a sudden, we're here, everybody gets that. But it's a clear message that, okay. And I think, that's, it would have that. It also allows us, we need to repost our that we're hiring, and the top line sign-on bonus that gets people's attention.
Sean?
To address Rob's question or concern or comments. It is an affluent community. It is. And I would much rather go to a referendum and get more money, because although it's an affluent community, we can't tax more. It doesn't mean we can get more revenues. One of the issues that personnel deals with is that we give a 2.5% cost of living adjustment, and we give a raise of like another 2%, but the cost of living is actually 5%. So we give them this 2% and another 2% bonus as a promotion, but in reality, you're not actually in a better position because we're in the same spot. So the rationale for me is, if we don't, and Sharon has mentioned it in the personnel committee meetings, that we cannot keep up, we can't do this. I would rather a committee look into how do we make sure we can pay people more, the right salary, than to just give them the money that they're not asking for. The non-police staff are not asking for bonuses. They're being offered this bonus so that they're not upset that somebody else who should get it is getting it. I don't know. I mean, I don't give one kid a gift because the other kid got a gift.
Carol, then Bob.
I would respond to that maybe, all of our workers here in the village live in a market. I mean, there are job opportunities for them in other municipalities, whether they're sworn officers or not. The problem for police is critical right now. I mean, it's a national problem to find qualified officers. It looks to be very difficult for us. So that's why we're offering the 5,000 bonus, or it's proposed. But everybody else has other job opportunities too. I mean, this is an acknowledgement that there's a market out there, and we need our staff. We need to keep our people, all of them.
Thank you, Carol. Bob?
Carol said it probably better than I could, but I would just say that I think that from a practical standpoint, this really a very small amount, I think will really help morale. And I would vote for it because I think all the staff needs to be there. The value here.
Thank you, Bob. I'm gonna go to Dietmar and then
John,
John.
Sean, go ahead.
Just that, I just want to say, we hired consultants to make sure that we were increasing the pay over the last 2-3 years to make sure that we were paying competitive wages. We've addressed the wages for the rest of the staff.
Dietmar.
I'd like to call the board.
All right, the motion, Julie, who's the motion in the second again?
Mark made the motion and Dietmar seconded.
Thank you.
I guess just to follow form and function, I'd like to call, make it a roll call vote.
Okay, how about if we reverse the order this time, and I'll start with Rob. Do you need me to reread the motion one more time?
I think, yeah, that would be
Okay.
great, probably for everybody.
Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. I copied this from the packet, so the motion is to authorize the provision of retention incentives to all full-time and regular part-time staff in the amount of $5,000 for sworn officers, $1,000 for all other full-time staff, and $500 to regular part-time staff to be paid in 5 installments, beginning with the April 26th payroll at a total cost of $50,000.
Correct.
Okay,
Work through the other full-time staff versus non-sworn full-time staff. There's no- it's clear.
I'm sorry. That wasn't part of the motion, though. Yes, I understand. Yes, I know. Yes. Okay, so one more time, Rob,
Yes.
Dietmar,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Shabnam,
I abstain because I do support the officers, but this would not be the motion that we want.
Mark,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, are there any other motions on this issue? Mark?
Yeah, I'd like to make a second motion to authorize the village administrator to establish a new hire incentive program for sworn officers with input from the police chief at an amount not to exceed $5,000 with a minimum of a 1-year commitment requirement.
Is there a second to that motion? Carol, so Carol first. Further discussion, Shabnam?
Is this a priority for the next 5 days? Because the administrator's last day is Monday, so. Is this a priority? I mean, I know we're gonna be talking about priorities.
I mean, I would just say, I know you're interviewing currently candidates, right? Or
No,
they're waiting-
we
they
need
need
to,
to be
we need to redo our
Repost.
hiring posting.
So would it benefit you? So what timeframe would you be reposting this?
We're waiting to find out what happens
Okay.
today.
So next week, there's a potential you could, on Monday, you could have a posting that says $5,000 hiring bonus.
Is-
This motion.
If it passes and it's for Sharon and I to work together to do that, could go tomorrow.
So does that answer your question?
But I'm wondering, I mean, Sharon's here for 5 more days and we haven't yet gotten to in the priorities for the next 5 days. Is this the priority that we want the administrator and the chief to work on in the next 5 days?
We have a motion and we'll vote on the motion. Further comment on the motion? Rob?
I mean, I would just emphasize again, this is a Band-Aid. Everyone agrees with this, so, I support the motion, but you need to address the long-term structure issue.
I agree. My only comment on this was with a minimum of 1-year commitment. I think that's at your discretion. You decide to make that, it'd be better to have a 2-year. But I don't feel the need to change the motion. Further discussion on it? Because it says a minimum of 1. So. All right, ready to vote on the motion?
Did we follow same format, so make it a roll call, and consistent with this?
Okay. Julie?
Okay, how about we start in the middle this time? Shabnam?
I abstain because I am not clear on what the priorities are for the next week.
Okay. Mark?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Dietmar?
Yes.
And John?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before chief and lieutenant might leave, I'd like to make one comment.
Go ahead.
About
Yeah.
the pursuit, yeah. My expectation as PHS chair in accepting that task was just to be able to write a really crisp response to that is, to the city of Madison, not expecting to be changing our policy.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
All right,
Do you need me to sit for my report card? There's really nothing to add.
I don't think so. This was great. I mean, this was over an hour on this issue. I hope you felt like you got enough questions and answers and discussion. And the same thing with you, Jamie, to the town light, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
For your service.
Yep. All right, item 7C.
Good luck,
Or,
Karen.
thank you, Luann. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
All right. Discussion possible action regarding authorizing the administrator to sign a contract with Foster and Foster for OPED valuation services. Yeah, did you?
So the OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. And this was actually a request of the auditor to have a check on our potential liability for our sick leave conversion. The proposal as it's presented is structured in a way that they'll do a quick analysis essentially to see if it's potentially material. If it is, then they will move forward with the rest of it to do a full evaluation. So okay. I did go through this in my previous community. It's a pretty simple process, and it's actually my understanding from 2019 or 18 when I did this. It's due to a new GASB thing that came up. So again, this is a request of the auditor. So I'm just looking for authorization to proceed. There's really not a lot involved in terms of staff time. Quite frankly, a lot of it was working up to getting the proposal. So it should be pretty simple.
Questions for Chair Mark?
Yeah, so, one, this is mandatory, right? This is not it's a requirement under the government accounting standards.
Essentially, the auditor is telling us we need to do this.
Okay, yeah. So I guess my question is on page 3 or 66 of the packet. Of the top, they talk about these two phases for the proposal, and B is a letter indicating determined obligation is immaterial and does not require reporting of village financials. So there's some sort of threshold here where they're saying, essentially, we've calculated the number, but never mind, it's not significant. So I guess my only request would be is I don't expect this number to be significant. So instead of, I'm just wondering if the consultant would consider as they go through phase 1 here and they have all these tasks, if they get to step, C or D and they say, well, this isn't significant, then just write the letter. I mean, I don't want them to do more work, to charge us more money when once they know that we're dealing with an insignificant liability. And then they can just issue the letter instead of them having to go do steps A through Z. Maybe they could do A through C and say, based on the number of employees you got, we're done. We can issue the letter. As opposed to going through a full-blown exercise. That's all I'm
And that is, if they go through phase one and determine it not to be, material, then we don't go through the rest of it.
Well, but I guess my question is, do they even have to go through all of phase one to reach that conclusion? That's my
According to
question.
their proposal, yes.
Um, Further discussion on this, possible action, motion?
Make a motion to, authorize the administrator to sign a contract with Foster and Foster for OPED evaluation services.
Thank you, Carol. Is there a second? Todd, thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion carries. Item 7C5, discussion possible action regarding interim administrator priorities. Sharon, I know you speak to this on page 3 of your memo. In the packet is a copy of the email that you sent previously to the board regarding recommendations on priorities for the interim administrator. Mark, I know you weighed in with a memo on this as well. Appreciate that. And there was other information, including you shot on the flexible facilities program grant. Talk about that. And you cannot provide a recommended motion as there's lots of different projects. However, I would suggest that this be done in 2 different motions. First motion would be to list which items are high priorities. The second motion would be to list which items are important, which should take a backseat to high priorities. Mark.
I'll just go ahead and make the motion that the board approve the statement laying out guidance to the interim administrator that was included in the packet.
And what page is that on?
Page 60, oh, sorry, 85.
Is there a,
I'll second.
Dietmar will second that. You know, again. Mark, did you want to just maybe just summarize for the board?
Yeah, I mean, also
For the public?
Yeah, all I did here was to take what Sharon had written and then make it clear that when the interim administrator is hired, they have all the responsibilities and authority that a village administrator would have. But that the board wanted to identify the priorities for this individual, which we know now is Carl Franz, because the task, the time to do the job is a lot more than a single individual can do in the course of an 8-hour day, or maybe even a longer day. And so I think it's important to give some set direction to Carl as to what tasks are priorities. That's not to say he doesn't have all the other responsibilities and authority, but to particularly highlight the ones that are of particular concern to the board, like these projects we've got going on the space study, on the governance projects. We don't want to drop the ball on those issues. We certainly don't want to drop the ball on his oversight and assistance to the village staff and so on and so forth. So these are largely the same priorities that were identified in Sharon's memo. And then I just note at the end here that priorities will change. I fully expect them to change. And so according to this statement, we're directing the interim administrator to report to the board, as Sharon has done every month, with a memo telling us what's going on, what activities they're working on, what are the issues, and should the priorities change. And make that recommendation if in fact that's appropriate to the board, so that we can do any mid-course corrections as we go through the process. Because we really don't know whether we've got an interim administrator for 2 months, for for 4 months, for 6 months. We don't know how long it's gonna take, so we really have to structure this in a way to consider the interim administrator here for a full time until such time as we have another administrator on board. So,
Thanks for that.
and I just put it out just to make it easy for the board to kind of say, yeah, this works or it doesn't work. This one, you missed something or you got something that doesn't belong.
Mark, it was very helpful. We have a motion seconded by Dietmar. Further discussion on the motion. Carol?
So I'm just wondering if this list is short enough. Because, the main thing I don't see on here is personnel manual, but I see a lot of other stuff. So. Or is it incumbent on us to pare this down anymore or to prioritize? Or Sharon, in your opinion, is this a good list?
I will say, if I can answer,
Yeah, go ahead, Sharon.
I think Mark has done a good job as far as I'm comfortable recommending. And I think that's really what I was trying to do in the email, is just kind of put my thoughts on paper. You know, I mean, this, obviously, I'm not gonna be here. But I think Mark has done a good job with that in response to the personnel manual. I did not put that on there. I do think it's a very important project. We've been working on it for almost 2 years now. And I think that the year and a half, and I think that project and recommendation of that project is better suited for the administrator who is going to be responsible for implementing that. And we be able to act as that sort of conduit for the staff. Because I think all the personnel manuals and other policies, it's about understanding how those policies get operationalized and hopefully we can do that without being involved with the staff. I definitely think that's a project.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I think it should be on there. I'm saying that it's the only thing that I'm not seeing on there. So I'm wondering, have we helped enough to provide priorities for so
Thanks, Carol. Sean?
And just to let you know that the personnel committee unanimously, I believe, would like to hold off on the manual until further down the line.
Mark?
Yeah, I think one of the other advantages of this is put Carl in a position where if a committee comes to him and says, you know, we'd like to take up this subject or that subject, Carl is then in a position to say, well, board has shaped my priorities. I can't do this, or I can't attend this meeting, or whatever. We want to empower Carl to be able to make those kind of calls without like feeling pressure to do everything that's asked of him, which we know he doesn't have time to do. So, you know, if this list, Carol, becomes too burdensome for Carl, then I hope Carl, ask Carl to come to us and say, I can't do all this. And then we can, you know, get some advice from Carl on which one he wants to drop and just go forward on that basis.
Rob?
Yeah, thanks, John. So there is, I'm not seeing anything about any grant opportunities that might come up, and that's, I assume that's what you intended. And I'm fine with that because we did have a discussion with Carl about potential grant opportunities coming up. He expressed his willingness and his ability to work with those. So I feel, I just want to note that that's not on this list of priorities, and that's also kind of a little bit of a hypothetical thing anyways, but I just wanted to make that.
Appreciate that. John?
We might be referring to different grant opportunities. And just to clarify, if everybody is aware of the one that I'm referring to, that Sharon informed me about, is like money available to redo the community center, put in an elevator, and there's no match requirement from us. It would basically be free money to do a huge facilities project. And so I would say, I mean, you guys could decide. I'm always in the minority by myself in every vote, whether you guys the board, exclusive of me, feel that free money is a priority to you guys.
Yeah, I would just say that this is not supposed to be an exhaustive list of what Carl's supposed to do. If something comes up like that Carl feels like, hey, this is something I should spend time on, as long as it's not taking away from these other things. And if it is taking away from these other things, then I'm hoping, based on this, based on the language at the bottom, that Carl will come to us and say, hey, you need to change your priorities. We have to give Carl some agency here, as opposed to just say Carl is just gonna, march forward.
Mark, I think this is a really good list, but the parties can change and opportunities can present themselves. So I'm gonna go to Sharon first and then Sean.
Just a real quick question, or not question, but comment. Sean is right that if the village has the opportunity to get money for the community center, it should be my recommendation would be to make it a priority. The only reason I don't include it, the only reason I haven't officially said yes, it should be added, is because we don't have the information that we need to determine whether or not we can do it. Because it's not just fixing the building. There has to be programming. We have to offer certain things in that facility. So it's not just here's money for your facilities. I think that as soon as DOA issues that information and we have more, what the application looks like and what's going to be required with the timelines, I think once more information is available, absolutely the board should evaluate that and say, is this possibility? Because if you guys could get, $1.5 million, $2 million to renovate that project, renovate that community center, you absolutely should try to make that happen. But it's just not enough information to be able to know if it's realistic.
I didn't know we were talking 7 figures. Put it on the list. Carol and then Sean.
Do we have any idea when that solicitation will come out?
The last information I got from DOA was we're hoping soon. Yeah, I know. Essentially what initially happened, this is all part of ARPA funding that was approved, and Treasury and everything took so long setting rules and all this other kind of stuff, that now DOA is trying to scramble to get everything in place, because we don't have a meeting until the 26th to extend the funding. So again, that was a couple of weeks ago, and was told we're hoping soon, and I can tell you there will be what I was told is that they expect a very short application window. So that's the reason why I'm saying the beginning of it.
Right. Sean.
So we need this list of priorities. So, and as Mark said, so that Carl can say, this is my list, I can't work on other stuff to the committees. But at the same time, if a committee comes to him with opportunities, he needs to equally say, come to the board and bring that to us. I just want to know, is this to prevent, what is this purpose if he is supposed to both carry this out and tell people not to bring other stuff, but at the same time bring other stuff? What do you mean, Mark?
I don't think this tells anybody not to approach Carl if an opportunity arises. This list doesn't say, in fact, it says very clearly in the very beginning that he has all the responsibilities and all the authority of the administrator of the village. And so he has to carry out that job description. This is just highlighting some priorities for him. If somebody comes to him with an opportunity, you're not going to just say, I'm not going to do that, because it's not on some list. It's on his list. It's part of his job duties. There's an issue of priorities, and that's something Carl will have to work through. And if he has a question, he will approach the board. It's not a robotic kind of task. It requires some thinking on his part, and I'm sure he will do that.
Okay. Further discussion? We have a motion. Ready to move. Do we have a second on the motion?
Yep.
All right, ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye, raise your hand. That motion carries. All right, thank you very much. Item 7C6. Discussion possible action regarding revisions to the board and committee meeting agenda templates. Sharon, I know you talked about this in your memo. We also have a recommended motion. Is there anything more that you want to say about it?
No, I mean, it really is, because we've had those issues with having to cancel meetings based on our attorney's opinion that with the Zoom information being directly on the agenda, that it doesn't meet notice requirements. This actually is a suggestion from our attorney to use the website and link to the website as opposed to listing the information directly on the agenda. So, there was an attempt to address that issue and ensure that if we have a typo and ensure that we don't have to cancel meetings like we have to do from all of these.
Okay, Shawna?
I would like to propose that the agenda templates be used as guidelines and not hard and fast requirements. And I propose this for several reasons. Number one, the administrator should not have to take up board time to make these type of changes. Staff should be allowed to self-correct and make adjustments as necessary. Number two, the agenda templates are not being consistently used by all trustees. The agenda for the finance committee dated March 25th, 2024 did not follow the template. The agenda for the recreation committee dated March 11th, 2024 did not follow the agenda template. The agenda for the recreation committee meeting dated April 15th, 2024 did not follow the agenda template. The agenda for the parks committee dated Tuesday, March 26th did not follow the agenda template. The agenda for the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting dated March 26, 2024 did not follow the agenda template. The agenda for the Plan Commission dated February 13, 2024 did not follow the agenda template. One more. The agenda for the Public Works Committee dated April 9, 2024 did not follow the agenda template. The only individual that was prevented from making changes to the agenda template was the minority trustee. The brown girl was prevented from having a template of making changes to, so I was the only one required to follow the agenda template. Nobody else was required. Nobody else followed it word for word. I was the only one. So that the village doesn't have a discrimination lawsuit on their hands, I believe you should make a change and make this a guideline. The current, and I could give you guys other reasons for why you should make changes, but I'm gonna just rest my case there.
Sharon?
I don't appreciate the insinuation that anything that I do is based on discrimination. None of the other trustees have actually come to me and tried to argue with me over the standard wording that goes at the top of the agenda.
It's not standard.
The reason
It's not standard.
the reason why we had to come to this in the first place is because you wouldn't quit arguing with me and other staff about the top of the wording. I don't want to have to do this.
Right, so.
But if I have to, because I have to have arguments with trustees trying to tell myself and the clerk how to format standard language on an agenda, then that is what we're going to have to do. But do not stand up here and try to accuse me of making any decisions based on discrimination.
It's 100% discrimination.
It is
I'm
not
gonna explain why.
discrimination.
Absolutely. So
Quite frankly,
everybody
what
else.
I told you
right.
was the fact that we are trying to get all the committees' agendas correct. There are items that do not have to be on there. Subject areas do not have to be on there, such as public comment period, are not required under our template to be on there. There are things that are not required to be on there if they are not needed for that meeting.
I would believe that it wasn't discrimination if you didn't have a Confederate flag tattoo on your body.
You know what?
You're totally
This
out of order.
behavior is why I am leaving. I am so fed up with
Okay,
the
Sharon.
accusation.
Sharon, I can understand why you're upset.
No, I'm done. I'm done.
Let's call a recess for a hot second here. In all this, and this is.
Yeah, we're just.
This is absurd. How petty can you be?
Let's reset for.
Thank you, Julie. This is, meeting in the village board, Sherwood Hills. Tonight is Tuesday, April 16th. We took a recess due to an unfortunate outburst meeting. And I don't have more to report on that, other than we're going to continue with the meeting. I did make an effort to reach our attorney, Gary Punches, both by phone and by text, and I have not heard back yet. So maybe his office number that I'm calling, which may be one of the issues. I'm trying to reach the attorney to get some feedback on what we should do. I'd like to suggest that we proceed with the meeting, try to get through as many issues as we can. And then we can deal with any of these other issues in the regular course of time. The item we were discussing was the possible action regarding revisions to the board and committee meeting agenda templates. Now, I won't revisit the discussion other than to say there's a recommended motion in the board packet to approve the board and committee agenda templates as presented. Is there anyone willing to make that motion?
Make the motion
Thank you, Carol.
to approve the board and committee agenda templates as.
Okay, Mark.
Second.
Okay, thank you for that. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 7C7. Discussion possible action regarding McKenna Park Master Plan proposal and authorizing the administrator to sign a contract for services. Dietmar, would you like to tee this up?
Sure, I'll do my best to provide the additional provide additional information above and beyond listed insurance memo. I don't want to be long-winded at this. It may end up getting long-winded. But as you're aware, part of the core plan really contemplated a greater vision for the village of Sherwood Hills here and some outdoor recreation possibilities. Along with that came a notion to have the McKenna Park specifically to re-engage a public engagement process for master plan. As part of the board's direction, the Recreation Committee was tasked with being the lead committee of this process. And we're just at the very beginning of this. As such, Sharon, the administrator, had sought different RFP request for proposal from firms. There were 8 or 9 respondents on that. Her and I met to talk about the scoring mechanisms and the score sheets with each of the responses, and ended up tailoring down to sorry, I'm a little bit out of sync here, so I'll get my stuff straight.
You're doing fine.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the vote of confidence. Appreciate that. What ended up happening is the two top scoring respondents were brought in front of the Recreation Committee. There were 2 firms, one being Ayers, the other one being Damon Farber, although it's just listed in the board packet as Farber. Both had equal scores in terms of the total score of 79 points. Again, those are the highest scoring proposals out of the whole bunch. The Recreation Committee met yesterday evening to discuss the merits of both RFPs and responses for each proposing firm. And there was a healthy discussion with that in terms of which firm had pros and cons and merits that came with each firm. And ended up making a motion that passed, not unanimously, but by a 5-1 vote. And that recommendation was to have Ayers be awarded the work. Ayers is AYRES, with the inclusion of a 3D model for a cost not to exceed $29,000. So that was the recommendation by the Recreation Committee to the board. That's what's in front of you tonight. As we've discussed as board members, obviously we're not subject to the Recreation Committee's recommendation, but I will tell you there was a healthy discussion that came with that, and I think we would be in the right spot to with that recommendation. So.
Thank you, Dietmar. I actually listened in on quite a bit of that discussion. I thought it was a really good discussion. I really liked the way you ran the meeting, gave every committee member an opportunity to weigh in, ask questions, and thought it was a really good discussion.
Thank you.
Bob.
First, Dietmar, thank you to you and Sharon for going through all this and rolling it down to some choices. I'm sure I have every confidence that either of these proposals would be great. My question had to do with the 3D modeling. Is that a physical model, or is this just to do extra modeling to provide a 3D rendering as opposed to
graphics? Yep, it would just be, it would not be a physical old fashioned. It's graphics.
So doesn't that, why is that an extra? I would think in any kind of architectural plan that 3D modeling would sort of be a standard.
I think that's a fair point.
Outcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna go outside of my comfort zone on this, only to the extent that I think that's how the RFP was structured. Okay, because it, in so many ways, was a master plan, right? This is just a master plan. This is not the final iteration of, say, what the final park design will be like, what McKenna Boathouse will look like. This is a master plan. This is intended to engage the community, to provide input and feedback as to what are the important elements to the park. How do we deal with grades? How do we deal with stormwater? How do we deal with access to the lakefront, to the McKenna Boathouse? How do we deal with, I don't want to say historic preservation, because I don't know if the McKenna Boathouse is considered a historic structure or not, but it's a master plan.
I see.
And that generally lives in the 2D world.
Okay.
And to that end, the recommendation really was with the 3D model is, in some ways, we will be going through not just this initial step, but many subsequent steps, and we have to seek public engagement. I think sometimes people have a hard time visualizing 2D worlds that don't necessarily live. So that added component, I think, will go a long ways as we fundraise, as we look to engage the public at large, etc. I will call on
Ron.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you started to answer my question towards the end of it. So this RFP was structured in a way that was asking for an optional.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
It was across the board for all this money.
And so you feel like this 3D aspect does definitely add value to building public support.
Absolutely. For the short term and long term, right? It's a result once the master plan is then put together to live in a cohesive plan document, but it can also be used moving forward to further engage the community, to see matching fundraising efforts. So I think to only go through this and stop short of it is in some ways penalizing.
Thank you.
Sheldon.
Do you guys have any ideas on what this plan could potentially look like? When I think about the boathouse, I just think you could add a bathroom, but is it gonna be like a beach? Is it kind of like the way Monona Terrace is gonna be redoing the entire place? I don't know if you're aware of what that, can you tell me more about?
Yeah, I definitely don't have the answer to that because we almost need to go out with a blank slate. Here are the existing conditions and the process by the experts at the table and do this for a living is to engage and seek public feedback. Not only with what are the wants, but what's possible and what's feasible, the constraints of scope and budget and even practical. So that is the art more than science. So I don't have any preconceived notions of what this wants to be, but for the fact that public engagement, and anybody listening, this is gonna be under a short time frame. There's gonna be a public engagement period that we ask for people to be part of, but it is a short window, because ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to put this master plan together to have enough information to feed into the 2025 CIP. Kind of play that forward into 2025, 2026. So there's a time is of the essence and speak to one.
Carol?
Reading the two proposals that we saw, I did like the Damon Farber one because the aspects about it that I liked was that they are very involved in Lakeshore Preserve trail planning. They were in the engineering firm that they're engaging is involved in Timber Bridge, and their proposal also seemed a little more tailored to Shorewood Hills and more cognizant of the vibe, I guess, around the kind of. So can you please tell us to what extent did the rec committee talk about those?
Absolutely, you are, Carol, you're spot on. Those exact points were made, those comments were discussed. Where it ended up landing is the majority that I wouldn't say voted for it had to reconcile the point total, the dollar amount, and what we were getting for that dollar amount. Maybe to look at it in a backwards way. There wasn't enough substantial extra juice or efforts that could say, hey, $28,500 versus 31 and change gives us a better, warmer, fuzzy feel. Just at the true parity, you got similar work from both firms. One was in.
Other questions for Dietmar? Sharon, Shannon?
I'm sorry if I missed this, but the motion doesn't actually affirm me. But you mentioned we did have a preference, or the committee had a preference?
Correct. When the packet was put together, that was prior to the recreation committee meeting, which happened last night. Recreation committee voted 5-1. And the recommendation is to the board, proceed with errors to include the 3D model, the cost not to exceed $20,000.
Shannon with the motion, is there a second? Carol, further discussion? A quick question, sure, maybe you mentioned this, Dietmar, I was a little distracted. Sharon had mentioned in the memo that she had asked heirs about the 3D modeling cost. So it was much higher than any of the proposals, and that they could modify to bring that price down if that was needed. Is there anything more on that?
Not between, I think this could be a follow-up conversation. That will happen in the time that Sharon is still here. Carl's desk.
All right, any further discussion on the motion?
So the
Ready to vote?
motion does include specifying the 3D model.
Yes.
Okay, so what would that total be then?
The
25.
motion is at a cost of $29,000 not to exceed.
Right.
So
We're rounding up.
less than that. It's less.
Ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. That motion carries. Thank you very much for that, Dietmar.
Thank you.
Item 7C. 8, discussion possible action regarding the purchase of replacement DPW dump truck. Rob, you want to tee this up?
Yeah, probably know the most about this. This replacement truck was covered in the CIP plan that was approved by the board last year. And the DPW did the work of putting out bids. We came up with a couple of options. They preferred the lower cost option. However, that purchase is over 50,000, and the bid, or and the bid came in about $11,000 over budget. And the main reason for that is just due to these trucks are in very high demand, and it's very hard to get these. This is a very important truck for DPW. It is the only truck. It will be the only truck that doesn't have a plow or salting equipment during the winter, so it's kind of the normal workhorse truck they would use during the winter. The truck that it would be replacing is 22 years old, so obviously we've gotten quite a lot of use out of that. So yeah, this came before Public Works, and we approved the purchasing process that they went through. And so the recommendation from Public Works was to send this to the board for approval.
Thanks for that, Rob. Questions for Rob? Always.
I would just comment and say I was at the last meeting and I was very impressed. Kerry, what a great job he did in looking at different alternatives and trying to save the village money. He wants to see if he can get some resale out of the old truck. And so, yeah, I would totally agree with Rob with this is very much needed, and all the homework has been done to keep the costs as low as possible and yet get the truck and accessories that are needed.
Rob, did you want to make the motion then?
Yeah, so we have a recommended motion.
Yep, to authorize the purchase of the DPW dump truck at a cost not to exceed $74,500. Amount includes title and registration fees.
Okay.
Good motion?
I'll move that.
All right.
That's his motion, I'll second it.
All right. I'll beat you to it.
Beat me to it,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine.
We're gonna beat you to something. I'm getting, well, that's not the only thing I
Putting skill on here.
All right, further discussion, otherwise ready to vote, all those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand, thank you, that motion carries, thanks, Rob. Discussion, item 9, discussion possible action regarding anti-idling ordinance recommendation from the Public Health and Safety Committee. Carol.
Yes, thank you, John. So the green team, the village green team had done research and made recommendations about anti-idling ordinance before the COVID pandemic, and it was tabled for a while and then came back to us and referred to PHS. They put together a great packet of information about idling and anti-idling ordinances, which we took under advisement. PHS committee also talked to Chief Farrow about what enforcement would look like and their thoughts about coordinating the ordinance with Madison's time limits, so as not to confuse people who might not even know that they're in one jurisdiction or another, and what is the length of idling that's allowed. We talked to Terry about Public Works and how an anti-idling ordinance might affect them, and their vehicles. But in the end, we figured that the most parsimonious thing to do would be to take City of Madison's anti-idling ordinance, which has been in effect for a couple of years, and just make a couple of small changes. One change would be to include off-road internal combustion motors in the ordinance. Madison's does not, but we figured since we're expressing policy in the village to be environmentally friendly and to educate the residents about the emissions from all kinds of internal combustion engines. We thought including off-road would be a reasonable thing to do. At the same time, we thought it would be good to include an explicit exception for public works emergencies, which is not part Madison's ordinance, but which we felt would protect the public works in the event that they do have an emergency, they can't be turning the trucks off and on, they're just gonna deal with the emergency. So those changes are in the draft that is included in the packet. And I have a suggested motion. And I'm happy to make that motion so that we can have any discussion. So that is, I move to approve the idling limitations and exceptions as written in the draft ordinance with ordinance language to be finalized by the administrator.
Is there a second?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Mark. Mark?
Yeah, so I've got a question. So this is an ordinance, right? What we're proposing is an ordinance, right? So we got to go through multiple readings for this. So are you proposing the first reading of the ordinance?
Well, the ordinance isn't written yet. We only have a draft and that, yes.
So this, if we approve this, this would still have to go through the 3 readings of an ordinance, is that?
Yes.
So I just want to clarify that. And then the second,
Yeah.
okay, and the second question I had was with regard to enforcement. Did you, well, unfortunately, the chief is gone now, but how does he, did you talk about enforcement? How he
Yes.
plans to do it?
Yes, he said, first of all, they will enforce the ordinance. They expect that most contacts having to do with the ordinance would be of educational nature. They noted that City of Madison has had their ordinance in place for something on the order of 2 or 3 years. They've made 1 citation.
There's always one.
Yeah, he expects that it would be egregious or repeated cases of idling that would be targeted for enforcement, and that mostly it would be.
Yeah, it's gonna be like hanging around after school ends and school in the morning, right? Pulling out, running in the car, waiting for their kids to get out, whatever. So, I mean, I think that we need an educational component on this. I don't know whether we need to put something in the bulletin and just, or whether we want to wait until the ordinance becomes effective, or whether we want to let people know, hey, we're putting an ordinance out there and this is what it is, so we can get some public response. Yeah.
Not only residents, it's also contractors and. MG&E had a big truck pulled in front of my house and they idled for 4 or 5 hours. I mean, and if they weren't hooked up, in emergencies would have to do things. Right. You sometimes need to do that, but sometimes you do just keep the urgencies. And I think that's what we can do. Thought.
I mean, I don't think that's anything we need to figure out tonight. If we feel the ordinance, draft ordinance is appropriate. But somewhere between now and the 3rd reading, we can figure out how we want to publicize this, how we want to educate people as to what's involved. Otherwise, I'm supportive.
Further discussion on the motion? Ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye, raise your hand. Thanks, Carol. Motion passes. Item 10, discussion possible action regarding referral of elementary school parking ordinance to the Public Health and Safety Committee. There's quite a bit in the packet on that. Rob, I know you've been directly involved. You want to lead the board on this one?
Yeah, so there was a letter from Principal Gillespie to the board. Discussing two of her concerns. One is that the issue of safety with the Shorewood Harvard Topping intersection. And the second was a long-standing request about school drop-off and pickup. And relates to how the east side of Shorewood Boulevard, adjacent to the school, where we have these cutouts in the street. There is no parking, no stopping, no standing from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 on the school days. So that is in the ordinance. village ordinance. So she's requested that this be changed. And so I had a discussion with Chief Farrell about this. And to make a long story short, Chief Farrell believes that we can change this. There's a state statute involved, but there's a window to get this changed. And we know that there are at least 2 other elementary schools in the city that have drop-offs on the near side of the school. So clearly it can be done. Principal Gillespie believes this would be a safer alternative than having the parents park on the opposite side of the street and walk their kids across the street to the school building. Chief Farrow agrees that it would be safer to have the parents instead park on the near side where the kids can just directly enter the school grounds. I think, everybody seems to agree that we should explore doing this, and so I would recommend the PHS to work with the village attorney and Principal Gillespie and Chief Farrow to craft the ordinance that would address this concern.
Shauna?
I would support, I make that motion.
Okay.
So for Julie's purposes, what would the motion be?
I kind of wrote one down. So refer to PHS, the issue of an ordinance change to parking on Shorewood Boulevard to facilitate school drop off and pickup.
I need that slower, Rob. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Refer to PHS, the issue of an ordinance change to parking on Shorewood Boulevard to facilitate school drop off and pickup.
Thank you.
Bob, you had a question?
Second.
No, I think I do second.
First, right?
Okay, all right, so that
I'll
was,
second.
thank you, Bob. Further discussion?
Yeah, the only thing I'm in full support of this, but I think as we're looking ahead and what to do with the fire station, we need to think about if we end up with a community center, for example, or we change the use of that building, how is that gonna affect everything? And so I only say that to kind of keep the future in mind, so we don't box ourselves in with an ordinance that might conflict with what we end up doing with those spaces.
Yeah, I'll also just raise another issue that the west side of Shorewood Boulevard has some really non-standard parking signs that may not even be in compliance with the ordinance according to Chief Farrell. So the east side is where the cutouts are. There's currently no parking, but I would also, you want to see the west side also addressed, because right now that's where parents are instructed to park to drop their kids off, but the signage is not great there. So.
Well, I would, it looks like I'm gonna be working on public health and safety, so I would like to get together with you, Rob, and visit that site. Sure.
Awesome, Mark?
Two things. One, there was a study done by the police department years ago, where they tried to conform all the ordinances to the parking signs. And I thought they had successfully accomplished that, but perhaps they did not. So just, FYI, that they've been through that exercise before. The second thing is, do you have any sense of how effective this is really going to be? I mean, I'm all in favor of even incremental change, but we've all driven Shorewood Boulevard at school, when school lets out time, and the cars just almost back up to University Avenue. So, we'll be able to accommodate the 6, 8, whatever cars, but it obviously doesn't deal with all the cars behind. I guess you're hoping that it's limited to 10 minutes. So you're hoping that as they move out, others can move in. So I won't say it's a Band-Aid, but it's a partial solution to the problem. Is that Am I? reading
Yeah,
this
I mean,
right?
I think traffic flow is a concern for sure. I think, you know, just slightly above the traffic flow is, everybody seems to be in agreement that making this the standard would add a great benefit to the safety, you know, just having the children not having to walk across the street.
Yeah.
And so, you know, whether there are some potential traffic flow, I can't say. It's hard to know, but
We'll
I
find
mean,
out.
we do have these cutouts. And that might be a little bit better than just parking on the.
Well,
side
I
of the
think we should
road.
use them. I mean,
Yeah,
if they're there, they're not being utilized now, clearly solve part of the problem. We may have to think longer term at some point for a more permanent solution. I'm supportive, so. Would you have something more?
Just a quick question, does this presume then on the other side of the street, the non-school side, that there would be no stopping? To prevent people from stopping and standing and letting their kids walk across?
I think that's something that the committee would have to figure out, and that would probably. I would want to see input from Principal Gillespie and from Chief Farrow in figuring out the details of that, what to do about the other side.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I think this is a question more for John than anybody else. This is, we want to get this done ideally by the fall. It's not on the list of things for Carl. What is the way to work on this without adding minimal impact on Carl's, agenda?
I'll answer, and then you'll correct me, sure, because we probably won't have it ready. My feeling on this is if the committee's gonna have an opportunity to weigh in on it, so Carl's gonna be able to monitor it. And then we're gonna decide if it's a board meeting before September, how this could be implemented. We'll have more information. Rob, what were you gonna add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, I already talked through the whole process with Sharon, and she said the process is PHS would take this up. There would be a discussion with the village attorney and Chief Farrow to make sure that the wording is correct, that it complies with state statutes and, you know, other village ordinances that might interact with this. And so once that ordinance, you know, if it were crafted and approved by that committee, then it would just come back to the board. So I think it would, you know, in reality, not require too much administrative time.
I did agree with that, but when you've got the expertise of the chief and the attorney, Carl's really gonna be in this situation as just a facilitator. Therefore, I think he's gonna be able to do this and still handle all of other responsibilities. I'm not personally worried about this.
Yeah. Just, you know, we have summer coming up, and, you know, if there's an ordinance change, we have the multiple readings. So if an ordinance change were to happen, we can have it in place when school starts in September. You know, that would be great, I think, for the school to have, you know, the drop off and pick up and all set in stone and sort of stuff.
So, bring you up to speed. We passed this, right? We're good?
We have a motion and a second, but no vote.
Motion second. Okay, well, then I'll call a vote.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion carries. Thank you, Julie. Thank you all. Item D, old business resolutions and motions. D1, discussion possible action regarding the strategic plan and authorizing the administrator to sign a contract for services. This is on page 4 of Sharon's memo. This was on the agenda last month. The information is copied from the memo from that meeting. Top 3 proposals, CP2, MGT, which is AKA GovHR, and an ARMT, municipal support. You see the scores, you see the pricing. Sharon spoke about one firm was project lead is located in Wisconsin, but CP2 and ARMT are just across the border in Illinois. How would you
How would you like to proceed on this one? Shabnam?
I don't think we have the bandwidth for it at the moment. And the reason I say that is we have to find a new administrator, which is gonna require a lot of extra special board meetings, interviewing, offering a contract, and we have the governance workshop, which requires meetings in person all day over. So I think this is the wrong time for this project.
Carol and then Mark.
So the material in the packet was recommending that we approve a contract to be executed after the new administrator takes.
That's right.
Post. Because we can't expect these consultants to wait forever while we make up our mind. So I'm comfortable with making a choice and setting the date for August, September.
Thanks. Thanks, Carol. Mark?
Yeah, my point was the same. I think Sharon was saying. We need to sign a contract fairly soon in order to lock in the pricing that they offered, but that the work would not commence until 2025. And the funds, the budget would be in the 2025 budget, not in the 2024 budget. So I think what we want the administrator to do is to sign the contract in order to lock in the fees, but that the work and payment will be in 2025.
Mark?
I think Shabnam had
Shabnam?
first.
Or you want
Well, I understood 2024. I didn't see 2025.
Well, that was my recollection from when this was presented to the board at the last meeting. I would agree, we don't have the bandwidth to deal with this right now. We've got too many other projects and we only have an interim administrator. And I think, again, that's why Sharon said the actual work should occur in 2025.
Carol, did you have something to add to
Yes,
this?
from the packet, from this month's packet, it says, I would advise the board to award the contract tonight, but delay starting it until the new administrator is on.
Right.
Which would be 3 to 6 months from now, possibly.
Yeah.
But if it's not 3 to 6 months. Let's say we get the administrator 9 months. Does the other side still hold the contract? Because my understanding is they're giving us 3-month extension that we get the money now, we lock the deal, but that they plan to start like 3 to 6 months from now. It's not clear.
Well, we could modify the motion to make it clear that the work and the cost of the project will be in 2025, not 2024.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm gonna just make a comment and I will put forward a motion. If you want to amend it, it's fine too. I think now more than ever, on the heels of the governance project, we do need to focus on the strategic plan. I'm finding myself all too often not being able to cohesively, as a board, see what the vision is. Oftentimes we just individual voices, but to have this, as I stated before, and I'll state it again, this strategic plan is extremely important. I do agree with delaying it until we are more settled in and past some of these bigger hurdles. I don't think that we should wait until 2025 to start that process. In all likelihood, summer, fall-ish. So what I made a motion like this before, and at the last meeting, I'll make it again. I'm gonna make a motion to authorize the administrator to sign a contract with CP2 for strategic plan development and cost not to exceed $25,000. The rationale behind that is they do have the highest score of the 3 respondents that are in front of us. And we need to honor that, even though they're tied with NGT GovHR in terms of total score points per dollar amounts. lowest in 2 nights. I don't know that we need to decide as part of this motion whether or not we start this in July, August, September, October. I think that's something to us. To understand again, if there's a, we need to get going on this, so.
Thank you, Dean. Is there a second on the motion? Bob? Sorry, further discussion? Mark?
Yeah, so in your motion, you talk about the administrator, but we won't have an administrator in a week's time, right? And we don't know when we will have an administrator, because there's no timeline as to when we will hire a permanent administrator. So should we give ourselves a little latitude and say authorize the administrator or interim administrator to sign the contract? And I thought, what I remember hearing from Sharon is that she had talked to these firms and they were willing to put up, to sign the contract with us now, but to not do the work until 2025. And I thought she had a budget concern about this not, am I misread?
I don't recall that at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't either. And, I'm sorry to interject. I don't have the proposals in front of me. I mean, they're available if we want to look. Some of them have something that, the engagement and then there's a payment and there's a payment. So I just don't know what those mechanics were. But I made a note that the CP2 seemed like that was, for me, seemed like the most sensible. And I think
you recall this was this a project budgeted? Is it in the budget?
It's in the budget and we identified it as a priority for Sharon at the February or March meeting.
Check to see whether we'd actually budgeted in 2024.
Does Julie know?
I'm trying to recall, I believe it was that something that she was planning on taking from fund balance? Because we had extra in 23. And this is off the top of my head, so please don't hold me
No,
to
I
this, but
appreciate it, Julie. Yeah. I mean,
without the notes in front of me, I don't know.
Yeah,
It might be in the
I'm a
minutes.
master complicator, but I mean, we decided as a body that this was a priority. We decided that the way to handle it with Sharon leaving and a new administrator coming on board, that we're going to hold off until that administrator is onboarded. And so nothing that I've read or heard today changes my understanding of what our expectation was. So I think we have a motion.
Now, has that motion been amended or is anything
it is
referring to the administrator?
Friendly.
Absolutely
Amendment
accepted, yes, to add to.
Just add the words or interim administrator. So the first line will now read to authorize the administrator or interim administrator to sign a contract. Otherwise, as is. Right. Okay. Our proposal.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for discussion. Shadna.
Well, I do have the budget pulled up. And maybe I'll just share my screen with Mark. So you're looking for the strategic plan, where it is in the budget. Furnace.
That's not the budget. That's the CIP. Okay. But if it's in 2024 in the CIP, then it was budgeted because it's folded into the budget. So is it showing up as a budgeted item in the CIP? It would have to go up because it would be in,
Line item.
yeah, because it would be part of. We'll go up a little more. I think it may-
I'm not sure that was on the table when we worked on the budget in the middle of 23. As a specific line item.
Yeah, but I just stand by what my understanding is.
It's not in the CIP.
Yeah,
It's not a capital, it's not a capital item.
Okay, got it.
We have a motion, go ahead.
My recollection also aligns with John's at the last meeting. I was all hot to approve the strategic plan and And the only reason that we didn't do it was the workload that is coming in the summer, so.
That's fine, and I know that in Sharon's memo, she's, talks about assuming the project starts later summer. And I'm sure that, so she was thinking that it would start this year. And maybe hoping to drag out the payment until next year, but, so, I'm fine.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, appointments, discussion, possible action regarding annual appointments by the village president. Sharon sent this out this afternoon. I'm sorry, I wanted to get it out sooner. My excuse is I had oral surgery 2 weeks ago, and it didn't go very well. A lot more stitches where there weren't supposed to be stitches. But I'm fully recovered and then got on my task. But I was really trying to rotate appointments where I could. I really wanted to put a lot in terms of the services committee. I think that's going to be a really important committee as we tackle the facilities and the space study. So we've got a couple of trustees there. I really hope there's some new committee members, but there's also folks that really want to stay on board and continue the service to the village. So trying to strike that balance. Shabnam, Mark, Dietmar, and I think we have 4 committees, 2 chairs each. Carol, I think you're at 4 as well. So 5, and then Rob and Bob, the newbies. We've got you 3 committees and 1 chairmanship. So that's
we're easing you into it.
Thank you for that. That's the slate that I'm offering for possible action this evening.
Do you need a motion?
We do.
It does.
I will make a motion to approve the list of appointments as presented.
Thank you, Dietmar. Is there a second? Carol beat you to it, Mark. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that motion carried.
I would like to make one comment. And I believe that this is very difficult for people to hear. And I believe it's very difficult. And I want you guys to know it's difficult for me to speak as well. But the need to move people around was just move Shabnam around. So Mark Lederer continued to serve on finance. Carol continued to serve on parks. John continued to serve on the plan commission. Mark continues to serve on pool. Rob continues to serve on public works. Dietmar continues to serve on the recreation committee. John continues to serve on joint campus. John continues to serve on admin role appeals board. So the person who had to move around was me.
Carol,
Right. I had to move so that Carol could take my spot on personnel.
she's moving. Public health.
Right.
Shannon, I think you made your point.
So
All right. Item 9A, village president. I'll share a couple of things. Item 1, local government 101. I don't know if Sharon has spoken to you, Bob, or to you, Rob. The League of Municipalities puts on a local government 101.
Okay.
Strongly encourage that you take it. I think most of the trustees have taken it. Just
How do we do that?
you'll
How do we arrange
yeah,
that?
probably.
Julie, or
What's that?
through Julie, or is it something online that we?
Yeah, it might be, Julie, you don't know offhand, do you?
I can look it up. I know that they contacted me for new census information right after the election.
Okay.
So yeah, it was something that I think Sharon was going to handle, but I'll have to do a little research, but I can find you a
Yeah, so,
contact.
We will get the information to you, Bob, and to you, Rob, and whoever else feels like they need to take it. The second thing I'll share is, I think things are progressing on the recruitment. I taped a video last Thursday. Was healed enough for that apparently. And the video is out there and the position description is out there. So I think we're gonna, I mentioned to Sharon, we'll probably, we'd like to place the video on the village website as well. There's a page just for the new administrator search. So when that gets there, check it out and spread it out. I put it on LinkedIn. I think it's had 1,000 views already on my LinkedIn, and I put it on yesterday, like 5:00 p.m. So that was less than 24 hours. I got some good comments. You just don't know what that's going to lead to. So hopefully we get some good candidates. The other thing I wanted to share is we had a very nice luncheon in this room as a farewell to Sharon today. We had 4 board members that were able to join. Mike Meyer, who was the former DPW chief, returned to share his good feelings about the work with Sharon. I thought it was really nice of that. It was really nice for the staff. Julie, you and the team did a great job catering, the event with tacos and guacamole. And I think everyone had a great time. So I think the staff really enjoyed that. I know Sharon enjoyed it. So it was definitely a highlight for her. Village administrator, Sharon's absent, not able to provide that update. The police chief's monthly report is in the packet. Committee reports, item 9D, are in the packet. And they're listed there. And then now we are going to go into closed session. And I need to read this, and we need to have a roll call to go into closed session.
Motion, please.
Thank you, Mark. You're correct.
And the motion needs to specify who can be included in closed session.
Right.
So
Go ahead, Dietmar.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to get into closed session and to take as a board and to take with us clerk treasurer Julie Fitzgerald.
Is there a second to that motion? Thank you. Carol? Thank you. All right, so you'll do a roll call on this, Julie?
Okay.
Now you have to read it.
Oh, closed session. Please note that the board may meet in closed session pursuant to section 19.85 1C of the Wisconsin statutes to consider the employment of the public works superintendent.
Okay, Imes,
Yes.
Barford,
Yes.
Basuner,
Yes.
Falk,
Yes.
Lederer,
Yes.
Lutfi,
Yes.
Stanky.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is the
Shut doors,
upstairs, is
keep
the
my-
upstairs locked? No.
Upstairs is locked.
So we'll be turning off the Facebook and coming back when closed session is finished.
Yeah, and it's 10:32.
Give me an error. Let me try that button one more time. I have this fear that it's on my page and not right. I apologize. It's just giving me a hard time. One more time. We're good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Julie. The Village Short Hills Board of Trustees just come out of closed session. It's still tonight, Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. We went into closed session regarding the employment of the Public Works Superintendent. Shabnam, would you like to share a motion, share the outcomes from that closed session?
I motion to make Terry Hanschke the permanent Public Works Superintendent effective April 8th, 2024, with a 2-step salary increase.
Thank you for that, Shabnam. Is there a second to the motion? Rob?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. That motion carries. Did you get all that, Julie?
I did. Thank you.
Excellent. Future agenda items. Item 12, this is an opportunity for trustees to request an item be added to a future agenda. No discussion may take place on any requested items at this time. Trustees should not make lengthy statements on their requests. We have here A, resident engagement in meetings, B, street lighting, C, police policies, D, process used to elect trustees. Are there any other future agenda items by trustees this evening? Okay, we'll move on. Motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second, Bob, thank you. All those in favor?
No, we do have to vote.
We have to vote. You just can't comment, can't discuss. All those in favor, please say aye. Thank you. Julie, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
You're welcome.